Fei said, "My cousin had a lot of spots on her face and they couldn't be removed, and so she believed that person's words. That pill looked black and scary. Everyone in the family were against her eating the pill. At that moment, my cousin also thought she was lied to, but that pill costed 200K, and she didn't want to throw it. As such, she took it as a learning experience. That necklace, on the other hand, looks pretty, and so she wore it." Fei said, "My cousin had a lot of spots on her face and they couldn't be removed, and so she believed that person's words. That pill looked black and scary. Everyone in the family were against her eating the pill. At that moment, my cousin also thought she was lied to, but that pill costed 200K, and she didn't want to throw it. As such, she took it as a learning experience. That necklace, on the other hand, looks pretty, and so she wore it. See, I told you that the frauds in the society are too much. If they catch your weakness, they will trick you. Perhaps you won't notice it at the time, but afterwards, you would realize that you were tricked," the other male said. However, Fei shook his head. "You thought wrong because the thing that happened a few days ago you would not believe if I told you. That day, my cousin went to the supermarket and discovered thief. She immediately signaled for the victim. However, that thief actually pulled out a knife and stabbed at my cousin. Just when my cousin didn't know what to do, her necklace shot out a ray of rainbow light and repelled that thief meters away to the point that he couldn't crawl up for a long time. That thief was later caught by the security. I didn't believe it at the time, but my mom said that. My cousin bought that necklace for 200K, and it was said to have 3 times of defensive powers. When she went back, she immediately checked the necklace, and one of the rays disappeared." "Fei, I think you heard too much stories. How could something like that happen?" a girl with pimples immediately said. Fei sneered. "Wang Lijuan, you may think I'm telling stories, but I know what I said is true. The first thing my cousin did after getting home was eating that pill, and guess what? You won't believe it, but all the spots on her face disappeared the next day. Now, her face is very smooth and shiny. My cousin had spent countless money on her spots, but she wasn't able to treat it. But that small pill just solved the problem. Now can you still say that man is a fraud? I saw this with my own eyes." "There really is such thing," a few students behind Wang Lijuan exclaimed. Although they were all classmates, they obviously didn't really believe it. "Why can't it be real? We just haven't seen those magical people. The fighting scenes on the movies are CGI, but I believe that those people really exist in the real world," another guy confirmed. At this moment, Xiaolei also spoke. "Although I don't know if what Fei said is true, but I agree with Zhang Weiwei's words. Those powerful people definitely exist, although they can't fly, but they can still do what they do in movies." Su Jingwen glanced once at Xiaolei. Of course, she knew that Xiaolei must have said that while thinking about Yimo. "Fei, do you know where the person your cousin bought the pill from is at?" Wang Lijuan immediately asked hopefully. Fei shook his head and said, "Of course I don't know. People from all over the world come on that night. Who knows where he's from? And my sister immediately went to that place to find that person the next day, but she didn't find anything. The powers of my cousin's necklace had been verified. People would even take it for 2 million, much less 200K. Later, someone offered 2 million for that used necklace, but my cousin didn't sell it. Of course I wouldn't sell it either. If that thing's is real, it is too magical, but I'm still a bit dubious." Another guy said. Song Jingwen was interested and asked, "Fei, do you know what that person who sold your cousin the necklace looked like? And where is this social night at?" Fei shook his head. "I don't know too well. My cousin said he's very durable to look at, and he dressed low-cost clothes. However, his eyes were very bright. As for the social night, it happens once a year at Luozong." Su Jingwen lost herself for a moment. She subconsciously thought of the man who sold her the runic paper. At that time, he wore shades and she couldn't see his eyes. He also dressed low-cost clothes. Was it that person? Luozong's social night. She heard that Ning Qingxue was also at Luozong now. Perhaps she could go to Luozong and see her while visiting that place. "Jiangwen, long time no see, you're getting prettier and prettier." Seeing Su Jingwen lost in thought, Wang Peng's heart felt itchy. When he didn't see Su Jingwen, he felt Xiaolei was not bad. High build, flashy personality, and a good face. But now that he looked at Su Jingwen again, he found that some people really couldn't be compared together. Su Jingwen's thought was broken by Wang Peng, and she looked uncomfortably at Wang Peng. I'm still the same. Xiaolei, let's go sit over there. There are some things I need to tell you. Being ignored by Su Jingwen, Wang Peng sneered. Just you wait. Originally, Su Jingwen didn't have a good impression of Wang Peng. After Wang Peng ridiculed many times the person who sold her the charm, she lost all her good opinions of Wang Peng. If she believed him at the time, her mother would still be in the bed. Just when Xiaolei and Su Jingwen sat down, another young man walked over. One girl suddenly exclaimed, "So Lin is here." Almost all the girls rushed to him. Xiaolei smiled. If I wasn't talking to you, I would go up too. The most handsome man at the school came, and he's still that handsome. I wonder if he would remember you. Pity, if you weren't going to graduate at that time, perhaps you would even be his girlfriend. Su Jingwen also stayed silent briefly. She knew Suo Lin, of course. She was the only man she had a good impression of at the school. He could be said to be invincibly handsome and was skilled in many ways. It could be said that there was more than a battalion of girls chasing after her, but he never seemed to have any negative news. When they were nearing graduation, Suo Lin started to chase after her. Although she was a school queen at the time, she was very low-key, and so she wasn't ranked number 1. To be honest, she really didn't feel against Suo Lin chasing her. Perhaps it was just as Xiaolei said, if it wasn't nearing graduation, perhaps she would have accepted it. Ever after graduation, she specially kept notice of Suo Lin. She heard he entered the entertainment industry, and she stopped following his news. She didn't expect him to be here this time. They were not in the same class, of course. Haha, I heard Su Xiao say that the student reunion of Yin Uni was here, so I came too. It seems I'm still quite welcomed. So many old friends, long time no see. Suo Lin scanned the surrounding and looked at everyone. Handsome Suo, you are a famous movie star. Would you even remember us, normal citizens? A girl immediately said. Suo Lin had seen Su Jingwen, who was sitting with Xiaolei, and his eyes brightened up. He immediately said, Haha, I'm not famous, I just debuted and made a few ads. But if you don't look down on me, you can take photos with me if you wish. Then, he didn't wait for these girls to talk before walking towards Su Jingwen. Jingwen, long time no see. Suo Lin's smile was still so mesmerizing. Su Jingwen also smiled. You're famous now. You may not see us, but we always see you on the screen. Xiaolei also said, if you are really like that light thief you acted as and can fly into the air, I will start chasing you immediately. Before Su Lin said anything, Su Jingwen smiled. He does not need you to chase. He has a bunch of people chasing after him. No matter how many pursuers I have, they can't compare with you two beautiful ladies. Suo Lin smiled and said. He paused before continuing, Jingwen, I signed a new movie, and I feel you are suited for the female lead role. Would you be interested? And of course, Xiaolei can also act as the second major female role. Really? What movie? Xiaolei asked in curiosity. Su Jingwen smiled. Although she wasn't an actor, she was very clear about the dark deals that went on the entertainment industry. So she stood up and said, Sorry, I'm not really interested in that. You're looking for Xiaolei, right? I'm going back. Xiaolei remembered to come my house after the reunion. Huh, Jingwen, you're leaving? Wait, I'll go with you. I still have something I need to ask you. Then, Xiaolei also stood up. Jingwen, you're not gonna go as soon as you see me, right? This reunion hasn't even started. Suo Lin immediately said. He just realized that Su Jingwen was prettier than the prettiest girl in their uni at that time. No wonder young Master Peng wanted her. If he didn't come today, he really wouldn't know that she was this pretty. Su Jingwen just smiled and said, Nah, I really have something to do. Seeing that Su Jingwen was leaving without even staying for long, many fellow classmates tried to persuade her to stay, but she was adamant on leaving. She found that a lot of her classmates seemed so distant and couldn't find the same feelings back then. There was no point in her staying. Okay then, I'll drive you guys, Suo Lin immediately said. Su Jingwen turned around and said, No need, Suo Lin, I have my own car. Suo Lin smiled and said, I'm also preparing to go, but you have a car and I don't. Do you mind if I take a ride with you guys? Su Jingwen hesitated and frowned. Sorry, Suolin, no guy has come into my car. So, she suddenly remembered Yemo. Didn't he sit in her car before? Rate translation quality 1 comments join in Google Tag. Command push, function, Google Tag. Display, chapter, add 159, Yeet. Sumu shook his head and said, it probably won't be. I investigated that Eru is just a normal doctor. He probably thought of the silver leaf as a herb, and he's only an ordinary person himself, nothing to suspect. Wang Chuan nodded. That's true. Master will come to check himself. As long as that person is in Luotsong, he definitely wouldn't be able to escape from Master. However, that Eru might have someone behind him. Call Wu Hong over here and get him to ask about the person behind Eru. Sumu immediately ordered.
Yes.
Wu Hong came to the basement in the shortest time. Although Wu Hong originally served Wu Shuiming, he immediately turned to the new people here, Sumu and Wang Chuan, after Wu Shuiming died. Not only did he reveal all of Wu Shuiming's secrets, but he also did things fast. Thus, they were very happy with Wu Hong. Wu Hong, do you know who is behind Eru? Sumu asked in a satisfied manner, seeing Wu Hong came in so quick. Wu Hong immediately thought of Yemo and said, he has a master called Yemo, and this Yemo was very close to Wu Shuiming. He has a master who knows Wu Shuiming? Why didn't you report this? Sumu immediately thought of the spirit sensing stone. Wu Hong shakily replied, it was because I had to deal with so much things lately that I forgot. Please forgive me, Brother Su. Wang Chuan said, indeed. Wu Hong has been quite busy lately and did a lot of things. Plus, he didn't know that Yemo would be related to Silver Leaf. Plus, even we only just knew the worth of the Silver Leaf. We shouldn't blame him. Sumu nodded. Since Eru still has a master Yemo, then should we go now and see that Yemo? Wang Chuan nodded and said, yes, I agree. Perhaps the master's guess is right. That Yemo is the person who took our spirit sensing stone. Clap, clap. A monotone clap sounded at the door, and at the same time, a cold voice sounded, not bad. You are both very smart. I am the one who took your so-called spirit sensing stone. Oh, I'm Yemo. To prevent you from going out of your way, I came here just for you. Who? Despite Yemo said he was Yemo, Sumu and Wang Chuan was still startled by this sudden voice. They were in the basement with many layers of guards and defense, so how could a stranger come in? Yemo? How did you come in? Sumu and Wang Chuan didn't know Yemo, but Wu Hong did. Yemo sneered. Of course, by walking in. Sumu and Wang Chuan had caught up with reality. Sumu's bleak face showed a sliver of cruelty. No matter how Yemo came in, since he didn't need to leave. You stole the spirit sensing stone? Sumu had recognized that Yemo was the person who fought over the stone with him. Yemo smiled and took out the unused space abyssal rock and said, idiot, it's called space abyssal rock. Indeed, I took it, and there's still more than half here. Sumu's face was filled with joy. He didn't think that Yemo would be so dumb to bring the spirit sensing stone. He immediately said, capture him. As soon as Sumu said that, the tens of henchmen charged at Yemo. It could be seen they were waiting for the order. Although Yemo didn't have metal nails, but he no longer needed that now. He didn't even use Windblade and just kicked. Shadows of kicks flew out. Thud, thud, thud. Yemo didn't miss a single kick, and none of the henchmen he kicked out could even move. Obviously, Yemo pretty much killed them with one kick. Sumu and Wang Chuan stood up in fear. Although they knew that since Yemo would have some strength since he dared to walk in here, but they didn't expect him to be this strong. Although any of them could take on those henchmen, but they definitely wouldn't be able to do it as easy as Yemo, much less killing them all. Originally, the two were planning to attack Yemo while he was distracted, but they didn't expect to have all his underlings defeated with a flurry of shadow kicks. Yemo was very satisfied with his kicks. He learned this from Wu Chong. Wu Chong's attack was not only fast but powerful. Yemo took it for himself and changed it a little bit, making it his. Wu Hong looked at Yemo in terror. Yemo's power was far out of his expectation. No wonder he could be friends with Wu Shuiming. However, What scared Wu Hong the most wasn't Yemo's power, but his attitude of killing without flinching at all. Even in gang battles, no one dared to kill more than 10 people in the city. However, Yemo killed more than 10 in the blink of an eye, and after he did, he was still very calm. It was as though he didn't kill people but ants. You are so cruel. You actually killed them all. Even Wang Chuan felt shivers by Yemo's killing attitude. Although they were ferocious and aggressive, they really didn't kill much. Yemo smiled and said, I came to kill tonight. It just started. What are you worrying about? Who are you? Why are you messing with the Metal River? Sumu was also scared by Yemo's killing methods. Yemo smiled and said, I messed with your Metal River? Didn't you just say you were going to mess with me? Sumu was at a loss for words, and Yemo couldn't be bothered talking to him. He continued, if it's messing with Metal River, then I'll tell you. If it wasn't due to Wu Shueming, I would have long killed all of Metal River in Luotsong last time. Do you think you have the capability for me to mess with? I just killed Qianlong Tu from Sinai Peninsula a few days ago, so I didn't expect to be killing at Metal River so quick now. Life is really a wonder. What? You killed Qianlong Tu? Sumu and Wang Chuan finally couldn't keep calm anymore as their face showed extreme shock. Rate translation quality 2 comments join in Google Tag. Command push, function, Google Tag. Display, chapter, add 160E. Wu Hong looked at the bloody scene with a pale face. Even though he had been in gangs for a long time, he had never seen such a bloody scene. Meanwhile, Yemo was very calm facing this scene. It was as though it wasn't blood on the ground, but just some water. What power was this, cutting off Wang Chuan's legs with a swipe? Sumu kept asking himself. Even if his master came, he wouldn't be able to do that. Yemo wasn't someone he could stop. No wonder he could take away the spirit-sensing stone without him noticing. If he also swiped at his leg like that and not kick on his face, then what would happen to him? Sumu subconsciously looked at his feet. His bleak face was pale. Clank. Sumu finally couldn't endure the terror in his heart. His knife dropped to the floor, making a crisp sound. Yemo walked over to a chair and sat down before looking at Wu Hong and said, last time, I said that I didn't annihilate this place because of courtesy to Wu Shueming. Since you pissed me off once again, and I still owe Wu Shueming, I will kill you all today. There was no more blood on Wu Hong's face at all. He always thought that last time. Yemo came to beg to Wu Shueming, but now, he realized that Yemo never even had Metal River in his eyes from start to beginning. Yemo didn't pay more attention to Wu Hong and looked at Sumu. I didn't kill you just then, and neither did I heavily injure you. Now, you answer a few questions for me. Don't make my mood bad. First question, how did you discover the silver heart grass? Silver heart grass? Sumu soon realized that Yemo should be talking about silver leaf. Sumu looked at Wang Chuan, who was unconscious on the ground, and subconsciously wiped sweat from his forehead. He felt his hand was shaking. He even felt that Yemo was the real gangster. Their Metal River compared to him couldn't be more innocent and kind. He looked once again at Yemo's calm eyes and could no longer bear that suffocating silence. He said with fear, I'm naturally sensitive to precious herbs and ores. I can feel them even 10 or 20 meters away. Because I will be frequently staying in Luotsong, so I was prepared to buy a mansion. Coincidentally, there was a mansion on sale near the place Eru was living at. So I went to look at the house and found the silver leaf. At that time, I felt this thing wasn't ordinary and called my master. He told me to immediately dig it out and bring it back to Hong Kong. Yemo looked at Sumu in surprise. Sensitivity to spiritual things. This was a heavenly spiritual talent. Even in the cultivation realm, a heavenly spiritual talent only appeared in more than thousands of years. He didn't think he would meet a heavenly spiritual talent on this spirit-deprived Erath. If Sumu was in the cultivation realm, he would be fought over by countless sections. Yemo calmed down after a long while. He really didn't expect there to be a heavenly spiritual talent. If Sumu were to cultivate, he would be much faster than him even if the environment was spirit chi deprived. Although Yemo didn't know what spiritual talent he had, but he probably had some since he could cultivate. However, judging from his speed, it shouldn't be too high. Just when Sumu looked at Yemo in uncertainty, Emo suddenly waved his hand once again and hit the hand which Wu Hong was dialing a phone with. The hand fell to the ground. Wu Hong and Sumu both looked at Emo in astonishment. He didn't know why Emo would cut off one of Wu Hong's hand for no reason. However, Emo looked plainly at Wu Hong and said, "You still have 3 chances to dial the police, but after 3 times, you won't have arms or legs to dial numbers with." Wu Hong immediately started to shake. He didn't even let Emo see him dial the phone, so how did Emo know he was calling the police? But he understood that if he was not going to listen, then all his ligaments would be severed. Emo seemed to love cutting people's ligaments off. This man was too terrifying. But soon, Wu Hong discovered that although his hand was cut off, the blood was flowing very slowly. "You don't need to look. I'm not letting blood flow out too much so you can do things faster. If you still waste time, then you don't need to call anymore." Emo's cold voice sounded. Then, Emo looked at Sumu and said, "Is your master from the hidden sects? Do you know the way to enter the hidden sects? And why does your master want the space abyssal rock and silver heartgrass?" 2 hours later, Emo walked out of the basement of the otherworldly entertainment. He didn't hold back this time. He pretty much killed all the heads of Metal River and Luotsong. Other than helping Wu Shueming, Emo also knew that if he were to stay in Luotsong, it would be better to annihilate such a power. And that night, he killed the most since he was reborn. Even last time in the desert, he didn't kill this much. Then, with a ball of fire, all the evidence was burned to ashes. Since Sumu's master thought of the space abyssal rock as spirit-sensing rock, then it meant that there must be more of it on Earth. Would Daoxian know about this type of rock? According to Sumu, Daoxian knew how to enter the hidden sects because he was from the hidden sects himself. This filled Emo with anticipation. Although the hidden sects people didn't come out to the mortal world, who knew if one day the strong people in the hidden sects would gang up on him? He eventually had to prepare for it. At least, if he could enter the hidden sects, then he could see their true power. Now, Emo almost made no progress in his cultivation. This wasn't something that could be changed with hard work. Even in the cultivation realm, it was normal to spend decades on the 12 stages of Qi gathering. Some people wouldn't be able to reach the peak of Qi gathering their entire life. There would be 2 more days before Daoxian would arrive at Luotsong. Perhaps at that time, he would be able to get something useful out of his mouth. At least, Daoxian would know more than that Wu Guangmong. If Wu Guang didn't want to say, Emo couldn't force him. But if Xian Daoist didn't say anything, then he wouldn't be polite anymore. After Emo killed all of Metal River in Luotsong, he left the otherworldly entertainment as though nothing had happened. But the second day, Luotsong was in turmoil. All of Metal River's men just realized that their superiors were gone and had disappeared completely. Panic covered the underground world in Luotsong, but soon people realized that something happened to Metal River at Luotsong. All the hoodlums started to run. Although Xiaolei wanted to maintain her composure, she couldn't stay calm when Sualei was actually coming to tear off her clothes. Although Sualin stopped, he smiled. "Xiaolei, I admit you're very pretty, but I've also ket a lot of girls prettier than you. Perhaps once you enter our circle, you'll realize how pathetic your resistance is today. Of course, I know that you think I'm bullshit now. I won't explain to you. Don't worry, regardless of whether it's your first time, I will still be very gentle." Su Jingwen coldly stared at Sualin, who was not far away. She still seemed calm, though. "Jingwen." Xiaolei's calmness was pretended, but she didn't know if Su Jingwen was pretending. She had experienced much more than Su Jingwen. There was no reason Su Jingwen wasn't to be scared. At this time, Xiaolei called out to her helplessly. She thought of that day when she won a flowing snake and Emo jumped from the sky. She then thought of Wang Qianjun. What difference was there between him and this Sualin in front of her? Although Su Jingwen's calmness wasn't completely fake, only she knew that her hand was shaking. She didn't even want another guy to enter her car, so how could she be willing to be raped? At this moment, she held a spirit-cleansing charm. She didn't know if it was useful for this sedative, but if it was, she would throw out the fireball immediately. At this moment, she only had enough strength to hold the spirit-cleansing charm but couldn't throw it out. If she threw the fireball charm now, she wouldn't even be able to throw it on them. "Xiaolei, Grab my hand, Su Jingwen suddenly said. Xiaolei stared nervously at Su Lin. She subconsciously grabbed Su Jingwen's hand after she was told. Lin. Su Jingwen grabbed the charm and read. Even that used up all of her strength. Charm? Wang Peng subconsciously said. Before he could react, the spirit-cleansing charm turned into a cool weak light, spraying onto Su Jingwen and Xiaolei. Tie them up. As soon as Wang Peng finished, Su Jingwen had dragged Xiaolei many steps back, having a standoff with opposite party. What happened? Young Master Peng? Didn't you say that the spray would make them powerless for 24 hours? How come they look like they recovered, and what was that white light? Su Lin looked at Su Jingwen and Xiaolei in shock. Although he was shocked, he wasn't scared at all. After all, it was two girls. So what if they recovered their strength? This was a hotel, not their home. Wang Peng's face sunk and replied, "It should be charms. She has a few of them. Didn't think these things would really work. I forgot that she even had them." What? Su Lin looked at Wang Peng in more astonishment. If Wang Peng wasn't the son of a high-up government official, he would have swore at him already. Charms? What bullsh asterisk t? Even Wang Peng didn't really believe that the charms Su Jingwen would really work. What? Jingwen? Even Xiaolei knew that she had recovered. Su Jingwen had used this spirit-cleansing charm before and knew it was authentic. Now that Xiaolei asked, she held the fireball charm in her hand and said, "I'll tell you this later." Wang Peng's face changed as he looked at Su Jingwen and Xiaolei. He wasn't sure if Su Jingwen still had charms. If she still had attack charms, then he really felt threatened. If only he knew earlier, he would have tied them up. After a while, Wang Peng thought that if Su Jingwen really had an attack charm, then it would be suicide if he rushed up now. And judging how she had one hand in her pocket, it was really hard to say. However, it seemed that this charm couldn't attack too far. He only needed to not get too close to her. Thinking about this, Wang Peng ignored Su Lin and carefully walked to the tea table. Then he quickly grabbed a heat-preserving bottle and threw it towards Su Jingwen's head. As long as he beat down Su Jingwen and not give her time to activate the charm, then Xiaolei wouldn't be a concern. Su Lin froze the moment he saw Wang Peng throw out that bottle. Wang Peng was just saying how pretty Su Jingwen was, but now, he was merciless. If this bottle were to hit her face, then she would be in a serious condition. Su Jingwen stared in anger at Wang Peng and Su Lin. As soon as they came in front of her, she would use the fireball charm. She knew that the charm wouldn't be able to hit the two if they were too far. She only had one fireball charm, so she only had one chance. But she didn't expect Wang Peng to be suspicious of her having more charms after seeing her use one. The sinister Wang Peng actually quickly grabbed a bottle and threw it at her. Su Jingwen's heart immediately sunk. She regretted not attacking herself. Now, she was on the passive end. However, she didn't have time to use the fireball charm with the speed the bottle was coming at her. Bang! There was a crisp sound. No one expected that the bottle didn't hit Su Jingwen, but was stopped in front of Su Jingwen by a light barrier. The bottle flew back at a faster speed and hit Wang Peng right on the face. Wang Peng didn't even moan before falling to the ground, obviously knocked out. Su Lin and Xiaolei were shocked by this magical scene. They could no longer react, but Su Jingwen did. Although she didn't know what had happened, but she knew now was her best chance to counterattack. She took the fireball charm, walked up a few steps, and threw it towards Su Lin while saying, "Lin." Before Su Lin could react, he was immediately surrounded by a ball of fire. He howled and rolled on the ground before soon passing out like Wang Peng. The charm Yimo sold Su Jingwen was the lowest grade fireball. It wasn't enough to take Su Lin's life, but soon, he was burned into deformity by the fireball. Not only was all his hair burned, but his face was also a charcoal mess. He shriveled on the ground while constantly spasming. Jingwen, what was that? What just happened? Su Jingwen felt that light barrier came from her wrist. She even heard a small explosion at that time. She subconsciously looked at her wrist. One bead was missing from the 3-beaded bracelet. She then looked around and was sure that it was gone. Su Jingwen felt that light barrier came from her wrist. She even heard a small explosion at that time. She subconsciously looked at her wrist. One bead was missing from the three-beaded bracelet. She then looked around and was sure that it was gone. She originally stored this bracelet away, but then felt that it was a birthday present Yemo gave her, and even gave another 3 beads to Ning Qingxue, which was very disrespectful to Yemo. Plus, this was the only birthday gift she received that was made by that person, so she wore this on her wrist. Was it because of the bracelet that stopped the bottle? Su Jingwen took her bracelet off in shock and disbelief. Jingwen, what's wrong? Xiaolei spent a lot of effort to tie up Wang Peng. She saw Su Jingwen in deep thought, so she asked. I understand now, Su Jingwen murmured. 6 beads of safety. So that's what it meant. She gave 3 beads to Ning Qingxue, meaning she gave her 3 times of safety. Meanwhile, Yemo gave her this bracelet to save her 6 times. He didn't tell her the use of the bracelet, but only said that if she cherished it, then she would be safe. If she didn't and treated it like a normal present, then it wouldn't be of any use. But she didn't cherish it and gave 3 beads to Ning Qingxue for no reason. Luckily, she still wore the remaining 3. Why did Yemo give her something so precious? Where did he get this? Su Jingwen suddenly remembered how she met Yemo. It was because she thought Yemo was that charm master, and that's how they got to know each other. Charm master? Su Jingwen felt shocked. She finally understood that Yemo was the person who sold her the charms. She didn't recognize the wrong person, but he just didn't admit it. Why didn't he admit it? Su Jingwen thought and immediately understood. His powers were too shocking. He didn't want to expose himself. After all, she wasn't close with him. How did he know if she would expose him? Su Jingwen suddenly felt the remaining 2 beads on the bracelet and felt regret. Even the actual worth of the bracelet was worth thousands of times more than all the presents she received on that day, much less the one Yemo made himself. She suddenly remembered that Cheng Fei said her cousin met that man who sold necklaces and pills. That person must be Yemo. Yemo's eyes were very bright and wore very modest clothes. Her mother was saved by Yemo, and even now, she was saved by his bracelet and charms. Meanwhile, she was still looking for the person who sold her the charms. Her mother had always wanted to see the master who saved her, and now, she only needed to find Yemo Jingwen. What was that? And what was the charms you were talking about? At this moment, Xiaolei asked again. Before Su Jingwen answered, the door was knocked and soon kicked open. Su Jianzhong was the first to run in. Seeing that Su Jingwen was fine, he gasped a sigh of relief. Jingwen, are you all right? Xiaolei saw that Su Jingwen's father had came and also felt relieved. She was a journalist and quickly retold what had happened. Looking at Wang Peng, who was still unconscious, she felt relieved that she wouldn't be troubled by that guy anymore. She guessed that in the end, this Wang Peng would only be sentenced a year or so, but Su Lin will be the sacrificial goat. Jingwen, when you go out now, have Xiao Yu with you. Su Jianzhong didn't dare to reproach Su Jingwen too much. He was already very happy that Su Jingwen could call him first. I understand. Su Jingwen surprisingly didn't argue with her father. Although she answered her father, she was still lost in thought. However, Xiaolei asked, Jingwen, you've been thinking a while ago. What are you thinking about? Luo Tsong? Su Jingwen didn't pay attention to Xiaolei's words and thought of Luo Tsong instead. Since Yemo appeared at the Luo Tsong magical artifact social night, it meant that he was living in Luo Tsong. Suddenly, Su Jingwen thought of Ning Qingxue. Wasn't she also living at Luo Tsong? Could it be Ning Qingxue and Yemo had gotten back together? Su Jingwen sighed. Ning Qingxue and Yemo lived together. So why should an outsider like her go to Luo Tsong? To third wheel? Never mind. She would call Ning Qingxue a few days later and invite her and Yemo to her house. Sigh. She gave half of what Yemo gave to her to Ning Qingxue. She wondered if Yemo would judge her. Perhaps in his eyes, she was no longer worth to be his friend. After all, he was that type of magical person. Someone like this was actually kicked out by the Yi family as an abandoned son. Yemo's family must have mental issues. And they called him that. No matter what they said, Su Jingwen wouldn't believe it. Yemo could cure her mom who was unconscious for a few years with just one charm. So how could he be that? Luo Tsong's chaos passed in one day, and soon the police of Luo Tsong found the change. It seemed that Metal River had left Luo Tsong. In one night, Luo Song had become a much more secure place without those troublemakers with powerful supports. Of course, Metal Mountain knew of Luo Song's change very fast. In that big Luo Song, there was not a person from Metal River he could contact, and soon, he felt something wasn't right. Even if the police had a sudden raid, they couldn't be this clean. Who would have such means to eradicate all of Luo Song Metal River in one go? Nanxing wouldn't be able to do it even if they were fine, much less that Qin Tu was dead and Nanxing was in a mess. Originally, he wanted to talk to Dao Xian about the situation, but he was on the plane. After Dao Xian got off at Luotsang Airport, he felt something strange. He had arrived at Luotsang and told his two disciples the time, but why didn't they come to greet him? You are Dao Xian? Yimo drove a rented car and saw a Daoist walk out of the airport from a long way away. Although he made Su Mu describe very clearly, he didn't even need to recognize by the face when there was a Daoist walking out of the airport. Dao Xian had a white face with no mustache. He was medium build and wore a blue Daoist robe. Luckily, he didn't have a hair needle, or else that would attract more attention. However, Yi Mo felt this Dao Xian wasn't simple. He could usually tell how strong a person was, but only this Dao Xian he could not. Who are you? Dao Xian knew Yi Mo was definitely not here to meet him. The people his two disciples sent wouldn't have such courage calling him Dao Xian. Yi Mo laughed and said, Of course I'm here to bring you to your two disciples. But don't worry, the place they are now is relatively safe. What did you do to Su Mu and Wang Chuan? Xiao Daoist immediately knew that not only was Yi Mo not here to pick him up, but was instead here for trouble. Yi Mo sneered. Xiao Daoist, your disciples say you're someone great, but don't tell me you don't dare to go on my car. Humph, drive. Dao Xian wouldn't think of Yi Mo as a threat. No matter how much people Yi Mo had, he wouldn't be afraid. He had cultivated ancient martial arts to the peak of black level, so it could be said that there was rarely anyone who would dare to mess with him. Even if Yi Mo brought him to a cave of tigers and dragons, he would dare to challenge it. Yi Mo knew that someone like Dao Xian would definitely go on his car due to his confidence. Yi Mo knew from Su Mu that the reason Nanxing didn't dare to touch Metal River was due to his master Dao Xian. It could make Qin Tu, who had Wu Chang, feel threatened. It could be seen that Dao Xian was not bad, and he indeed couldn't tell how strong Dao Xian was. He heard Su Mu say that the reason Dao Xian came to Luotsang so urgently was because he found silver heartgrass, and another reason was Yi Mo's space abyssal rock. Dao Xian indeed didn't consider Yi Mo's gang a threat. He believed Yi Mo had more people with him. Of course, they didn't how scary someone who cultivated ancient martial arts to his degree would be. Perhaps they only knew that Su Mu and Wang Chuan was his disciple. With a disciple like that, the master couldn't be much stronger. If they really thought that way, he didn't mind showing them some power later. He would make the bold people fear and beg him before killing them. Why did you drive the car here? Dao Xian reacted and found that Yi Mo had driven the car to a barren place in the rural area. Yi Mo walked off the car and said, Come down, Dao Xian. I've already sent your disciples, Su Mu and Wang Chuan, to the underworld. You don't need to worry, you will soon go see them. You killed them? Dao Xian's tone sounded calm without any discernible anger, but Yi Mo could see from his eyes that Dao Xian was incredibly angry. Yi Mo smiled and said, Yes, not only did I kill Su Mu, but also Wang Chuan. Oh, I also eradicated Metal River in Luotsang. Young man, do you think you can be so arrogant after practicing a few years of ancient martial arts? Tell me, why did you kill my disciples? Don't worry, I'll teach you true regret later. Dao Xian could no longer stay calm as his face turned green. He wasn't even interested in knowing Yi Mo's name. Yi Mo knocked the hood of the car and said, Because they stole my silver heart grass and beat my disciples, so I killed them. Good, good, good. I will satisfy you. Punk, I will make sure you're satisfied. Dao Xian could no longer resist his anger and wanted to attack. However, Yi Mo waved his hand once again and said, Don't rush, do you know this? Then, Yi Mo took out the space abyssal rock. Rate translation quality, no comments. Be the first. Google tag. Command push, function, Google tag. Display. Chapter, add 163, Yi. Daoist Yin's eyes focused and spat. Spirit sensing stone? Quick, show me. Daoist Yin's eyes focused and spat. Spirit sensing stone? Quick, show me. Daoist Yin had completely forgotten who Yimo was. In his eyes, there was only this rock who could help him break through. At this moment, Yimo put the stone away. Not bad, you've seen this before. Tell me, where did you see it? Punk, give the stone over. Daoist Yin saw Yimo put the stone away, and his mouth turned hideous. He completely forgot his two disciples were killed and casually took out a whip from his waist. Yimo was dazed. Why did these ancient martial arts people all like to use whips? But soon, he realized that this was a legal issue in society. If one carried a big sword around everywhere, then they would probably be invited to the police station. And the ancient martial arts cultivators here didn't have storage devices, so they could only carry it with them. A whip was the best choice. Yimo smiled and said, "You can't threaten me. You can try if you don't believe me." Daoist Yin calmed down and took a careful look at Yimo, but couldn't see how he wasn't ordinary. The only thing was that he was too calm. No matter what, it was a big loot if he could get the spirit sensing stone. It was a pity that Sumu was killed. Sumu had helped him a lot. Yimo had a lot of questions to ask Daoist Yin. He could make Lang Ji lose his mind for a brief moment, but that was because Lang Ji was far inferior to him. To this Daoist Yin, however, Yimo wasn't sure if it would work. If it didn't, it would damage his memory instead. Yimo was sure Daoist Yin wasn't a match for him, but before they fought against each other, he still didn't the extent of the latter's strength. "Do you believe me I can crush this stone with my hands?" Yimo saw that Daoist Yin was thinking about something. He knew that Daoist Yin wanted to catch him off guard. Daoist Yin suddenly sneered. "Do you think you can get away today? That's another thing. But I want to ask you now. Do you know about the hidden sects? Did you come from the hidden sections? If you answer me, I can't let you touch this stone," Yimo confidently said. Daoist Yin was so angry he laughed instead. This young man didn't know what death meant. The reason he didn't move was just as Yimo said. He was afraid Yimo would shatter the stone. Daoist Yin looked at Yimo's hand, hesitated for a moment before saying, "Okay, listen up. I'm from the hidden sections. The hidden sects are sects that are hidden, so they don't walk around in the normal world. Of course, there are individuals who does. In that case, the hidden sects are either hidden in the depth of the mountains or deserted places?" Yimo immediately asked. Daoist Yin sneered. "There are indeed a lot of sects hidden in these places you said, but there are some that are in the normal world, perhaps in some boisterous market or a small mansion. As for how to get to the hidden sects, I only know how to get to my sect. Then how do you enter the hidden sects?" Yimo didn't expect that they could be hidden in cities. Daoist Yin sneered. "You think you can get in the hidden sects?" Yimo's face sunk. "Old man, we're dealing right now. If you don't want the stone, then don't blame me if I crush it." "Wait, I'll tell you." Daoist Yin talked till now just for the rock, so how could he let Yimo break it? Yimo had a contemptuous look and said, "You better be specific, don't make me ask you." Daoist Yin was so angry to the point that he wanted strike. But the stone concerned him progressing, so he held back on the thought. He took a deep breath before saying, "Do you think the hidden sects is just ancient martial arts cultivation? There are so many branches, and ancient martial arts is just one of them. And the people from hidden sects who come to the normal world mustn't reveal the location of their base even if they die. Plus, even if they told you, no one would be able to find it." Seeing Yimo's surprised look, Daoist Yin sneered before saying, "There are too many branches in the hidden sections. Most of them are studying ancient martial arts, but some don't. Each sect is protected by a formation. These are passed down from the ancient times. Normal people wouldn't be able to notice it at all. There are some of these small dimensions, but some have collapsed. Each of these small dimensions have a formation. Once this formation collapses, the small world disappears with it." Talking to now, Daoist Yin seemed to be longing for it too. Yimo asked in surprise, "In that case, each hidden sect has a small dimension? Is your sect in one of them too?" Daoist Yin sneered. "Insolent, do you think it's so easy to find a small dimension? Some of them, even I have only heard of, much less you. Plus, No one can be sure if there are small dimensions in this world. My sect is only a branch of the main sect. Emo was asking for information from Daoxian, so he didn't dare to anger him too much. As such, he asked, "What do you mean by that small dimension?" Daoxian looked at the space abyssal rock in Emo's hands and estimated if he could grab it while answering. Those sects with a small dimension are true hidden sections. We call them the inner hidden sects. Other hidden sects are outer hidden sects. Other than this, there are some semi-hidden sects, which include the hidden families and sects in the normal world. However, inner hidden sects are unheard of now. We don't know if they still exist. Most of the hidden sects now are outer hidden sects. Meanwhile, the semi-hidden sects are gradually assimilated by the normal world and can't be truly hidden. Emo knew that Daoxian's attention was focused on his rock, but pretended he didn't know and asked, "Can you tell me a few names of the hidden sects? For example, the sect you're at." Daoxian thought and still hadn't made the decision to rob the stone, so he replied, "Ju Yun Temple, Cha family of the South River, 4 states 9 moons Daoist Temple." These are all semi-hidden sects. However, Daoxian didn't mention his own sect. Emo thought, in that case, the sect Luo Susu was at should be outer hidden sects. Even Daoxian didn't know if inner hidden sects existed. Wu Guang Monk's Juyu Temple was only a semi-hidden sect. In that case, no matter how hidden the outer hidden sects were, people should have gone in after such a long time. Emo thought that as long as it was a place people could walk to, then it could be found. But since it was found, how could it be considered a hidden sect? "You're dreaming." Daoxian sneered once again and said, "Even outer hidden sects are mostly in dangerous mountains and deserted places. Many of them were ruled out by the government. Can't you see there are many places that are prohibited by the country for tourism? Some are because the places are dangerous and many people couldn't come back. But it's very likely that those places are where the hidden sects are. So not only is it hard to go in, but it is also hard for the hidden sect people to come out. Many people won't get a chance to come out their entire lifetime." Emo suddenly thought of Luo Susu's words, "Don't look for me. It would harm you and me." Thinking about this, Emo asked once again, "In that case, what if I accidentally enter the outer hidden sects?" Daoxian looked at Emo in contempt. "You think it's that easy? Plus, even if you did by chance, they could kill you. If you had some potential, perhaps you would stay there your life. If you don't, they would just kill you for no reason." Emo's heart skipped. Since it was so hard to come in and out of the hidden sects, how did Luo Susu come out last time? From her tone, it was indeed hard. Thinking about Luo Susu, Emo was lost in thought. Seeing that Emo was dazed, Daoxian wanted to rob the stone, but then Emo suddenly asked, "Tell me a way to get in a hidden sect, and perhaps I will let you hold this stone for 1 second." Daoxian sneered, but he still said, "Every 3 years, the hidden sects will hold a tournament. This year is the 3rd year. The place is at Wuliang Mountain. As for the exact location, I don't know." Emo was very satisfied with Daoxian's answer, so he casually threw the stone to Daoxian. "Very well, I'm very happy with your answer. You can hold this for 1 second." Daoxian saw the stone flying at him. His eyes were desperate and didn't even think before grabbing at it. Just when his hand touched the rock for less than 1 second, the rock flew out of his hand and back into Emo's. Emo chucked the rock and said, "Okay, I've let you touch it. I'm going to put it away." "Chi control at will?" Daoxian yelled out in shock. Cultivating inner chi to such an extent. Even he couldn't do it now. It would be hard to say if he could do it even if he reached Earth level. After saying this, Daoxian immediately realized Emo was tricking him. At this time, his whip had flown towards Emo's head with a sharp howl. TL note: join our Discord channel for Strongest Abandoned Son. If you have questions, suggestions, etc., please don't hesitate to message us directly there. There will be information sheets in the info channel where cultivation states, characters list, and pinging terms list is posted in case you don't understand anything. Here's the Discord link: https://discord. GG/ZPY8 A7 rate translation quality 1 comments join in Google Tag. Command push function Google Tag. Display. Chapter, Ad 164. If Uchiu's whips were an onslaught of whip shadows, then Dao Xian's whip was a screen of whips. Not only did it seal Yimo's front, back, and lateral sides, but it also brought a strong oppressive feeling. If Uchiu's whips were an onslaught of whip shadows, then Dao Xian's whip was a screen of whips. Not only did it seal Yimo's front, back, and lateral sides, but it also brought a strong oppressive feeling. Comparatively, Uchiu's whips were child's play. Yimo was sure that if he was still stage 2 chi gathering, he would meet his end. This person's whip was too strong, and he was someone who truly cultivated out inner chi. His inner chi was on par with Yimo's chi. It could be said that other than Yimo's identity as a spirit chi cultivator and could use some magic, then he was worse than this Dao Xian in other aspects. This was because Dao Xian hadn't progressed. Yimo estimated that even he would be no match for Dao Xian after he progressed. If Yimo wasn't a cultivator, he could fight in close-range battles with Dao Xian. However, he was indeed a cultivator. Fighting with this Dao Xian in close range was fighting with a shortcoming to the opponent's strength. Yimo's fists surged with chi and hit out tens of strikes. The fist winds struck with the screen of whips, creating cracking sounds. Dao Xian took a few steps back and looked at Yimo in shock. He didn't expect that Yimo could stop his whips containing chi with just his fists. The young man looked only in his 20s, so even if he started to train in his mother's womb, he couldn't be a match to him. Yimo struck back Dao Xian and also took a few steps back. This Dao Xian wasn't easy, but Yimo didn't dare to use Windblade and Fireball now. He could only look for his chance and use the Windblade at that time. The moment he used it and failed, Dao Xian would be wary. He wouldn't even think about Fireball, since it would only be a waste of his chi. With this Daoist agility, there was no way his Fireball could land. The weakness of the Fireball was exposed in such a battle. If Yimo was in Foundation Establishment, then he could casually use Fireballs, and perhaps this Dao Xian would be gone with one Fireball. However, he was only stage 3 chi gathering. Perhaps before he even used his second Fireball, that whip would come. With Dao Xian's experience, it was very easy to see the weakness of his Fireball. Young man, you're very good. No wonder my 2 disciples would die to you. But if that's all you got, then don't even bother asking about the hidden sections. Go die with my 2 disciples. Then, Dao Xian didn't even wait for Yimo to catch his breath before his whip turned into a black shadow striking towards Yimo's waist. Yimo just struck away Dao Xian's whip, and his hand was still hurting. He knew that this whip wasn't made from ordinary material. Just as Yimo expected, Dao Xian's whip was made from a weapon-making sect. This whip was an attacking magical artifact. Looking at Dao Xian's whip looming over, Yimo frowned. He thought that he should prepare a weapon for himself. Otherwise, he would be fine with ordinary people, but against this Daoist or someone similar to him, he was at a disadvantage. Bang! Bang! Yimo's fist struck the whip. Although his spirit sense was strong, this Dao Xian's movements were extremely rapid. As soon as Yimo knew where the whip would come, it had already come. Seeing Yimo deflect his whip for the second time, Dao Xian sneered. He also saw Yimo's disadvantage, and he didn't believe that Yimo had more inner chi than his decades of training. When Dao Xian's second whip was stopped by Yimo, he didn't even pull the whip back. The whip turned in mid-air and attacked for the 3rd time. It seemed to Yimo there was only one whip shadow, but luckily Yimo had spirit sense. Although the use of spirit sense was very little when fighting with someone like Dao Xian, it still had some use. Before this whip even hit Yimo, there was a searing feeling coming from it. Yimo's spirit sense had noticed that this whip was thicker than the other 2. Yimo immediately knew this was Dao Xian's killing blow and focused. The feeling this whip gave Yimo was that the center of weight wasn't at the middle of the whip but at the handle. If he attacked the middle of the whip like he did before, he would be helping Dao Xian to make the whip attack himself with greater power. In that case, it would be like fighting with himself and Dao Xian. Yimo's eyes grew cold. This Dao Xian was so sinister. If he didn't have spirit sense, perhaps he would have fallen into the trap. Once he was hit by such a powerful whip, he couldn't even think how he was going to take on the next attack. Luckily, Although he was a Dao cultivator, he didn't drop his martial arts. He could even use his chi into martial arts. Otherwise, he would lose with just his stage 3 chi gathering. When the searing whip came, Yimo suddenly struck out his fist towards the middle of the whip. Dao Xian's eyes were filled with joy. There was contempt at the corner of his mouth, and he thought no matter how strong Yimo was, he was still going to drink his piss. But suddenly, he felt something wasn't right. Although Yimo struck his whip, he didn't feel anything on it. Or perhaps, Yimo's hand didn't even touch his whip. What was this? Dao Xian wouldn't believe that Yimo could tell where the force of his whip was at. He was already half a step into Earth level. Not even an Earth level fighter would be sure to tell where the power of his whip was, so how could Yimo see it? But what made him more shocked happened. Yimo suddenly disappeared into thin air. Dao Xian was very confident in his whip. He sealed all of Yimo's escape routes, forcing Yimo to clash with him. So how could Yimo disappear? Then, immediately after, Dao Xian found Yimo. He seemed to have used something to go invisible, but Yimo couldn't hide his inner chi waves from him. In that moment of hesitation, Dao Xian's whip slowed a little, and just at that point in time, Yimo had grabbed the handle of the whip. Suicidal. Dao Xian sneered. He didn't know how Yimo found out, but even if he did, grabbing the handle of the whip was suicide. Just when Dao Xian wanted to use more inner chi as he kicked towards Yimo, he felt a certain coldness. Amongst the heat of his searing whip, there was a sudden gust of coldness that made him shiver. He had fought countless people and knew that any bad premonition could make him lose his life. Dao Xian was a careful person and could no longer care about Yimo. He wanted to retreat as soon as possible. But then immediately, his 2 legs felt cold. Not good. Dao Xian immediately knew he was struck by some projectile. What was it though? Even he couldn't notice it. Even if he couldn't block ordinary projectile, he could still feel it. However, the projectile this young man used today wasn't something he could notice. He only felt some coldness on his leg. Drop. Dao Xian suddenly lost his balance and fell to his ground. What made his heart shiver was that he found both his legs were cut off by something sharp and fell aside far away. Under such shock and anger, Dao Xian's hand loosened, and his whip fell into Yimo's hands. Yimo took a careful look at the whip. It was indeed not bad. Even the materials were good, and he couldn't tell what it was made from. Dao Xian quickly stopped the bleeding in fear. Even now, he still didn't know what Yimo used to cut off his legs. Yimo looked at his hand from which a layer of skin came off. Blood even seeped out of it. He casually put away the whip, looked at Dao Xian and said, "You're very strong, the strongest opponent I have faced. You're not the one who injured me the most, but you're not bad. What projectile did you use? And where did you put the whip?" Dao Xian had regained his composure. Yimo sneered. "You still have the mood to care about that? Let's talk about where you planted my silver heart grass, so I won't get angry." Dao Xian didn't expect that despite him having the upper hand, he somehow had his legs severed in the turn of an eye, and he was now someone so vulnerable. Dao Xian had regained his calm and knew that he had no way out of this young man's hands. After staying silent for a while, he calmly said, "If the moment I felt that coldness I jumped up or took the whip back to defend, your projectile wouldn't be able to reach me?" Yimo smiled plainly and said, "Indeed, that way, I wouldn't be able to hit you. Then why didn't you use your projectile to hit my arms? Even if I took the whip back, wouldn't you have much greater chance of cutting my hands off?" Dao Xian was full of regret. He didn't think that frosty wind would be so scary. If Yimo just used that frosty wind projectile to hit his arms, although he would lose one arm, he would probably have greater chance of surviving. "Because I don't want you to go, as long as you can't move, it would be easier for me to kill you." Yimo didn't originally expect his wind blade to be able to cut off Dao Xian's legs. He just wanted Dao Xian's legs to be injured, so his fireball would be effective. He didn't expect that this Dao Xian didn't even take back his whip to block the wind blade. Then, Yimo used a fireball which struck Dao Xian's broken legs. Under the fire, it immediately turned into nothingness. Seeing Yimo could use a fireball so easily, Dao Xian's face was now full of extreme terror. He didn't feel such terror when he knew he was going to die. After a moment, he said, "Just who are you?" Rate translation quality, no comments. Be the first. Google tag. Command push, function, Google tag. Display. Chapter, add 165, Dao Xian finally understood why Emo cut off his legs first. If his legs were fine, then that fireball wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Dao Xian finally understood why Emo cut off his legs first. If his legs were fine, then that fireball wouldn't be able to do anything to him. You don't need to know who I am. I said you shouldn't have taken my things. Since you did, then don't blame me. Then, another fireball rose out of Emo's hand from nothing. You can create fireball from air. You? Dao Xian had already forgotten the pain and fear. He was still making guess about Emo using fireball just then, but now, he was sure. Emo really could make fireball from air. He finally saw something in the legends. Funny thing was he actually wanted to fight such a person. Seeing Emo's fireball hit towards him, Dao Xian finally understood his situation and quickly said, "Hold up, don't you want your silver heartgrass?" Emo never planned on killing Dao Xian now. He knew that if he didn't bring out something that made Dao Xian fear, then he wouldn't surrender. Now that Dao Xian brought it up, he thought for a while before saying, "I do care about the silver heartgrass, and where did you see the space abyssal rock?" Dao Xian quickly responded, "As long as you will let me go, I will tell you." "No need, you don't have the right to bargain with me." Then, Emo quickly walked up in front of Dao Xian and patted on his head. Emo thought that now that Dao Xian was subjugated by him, it should be fine to control his mind. But as soon as Emo finishing patting, Dao Xian hummed and died. He didn't expect Dao Xian to be so resolute in not giving Emo any chance to ask and directly shattered his aorta. Luckily, Emo asked some news first. Otherwise, he still wouldn't know anything. He would have wasted his time on waiting for Dao Xian. He didn't care about Dao Xian's life, but cared what he could get from him. He searched out a card and small plate from Dao Xian. He didn't know what it was made from, but it wrote black capital in ancient characters. Emo raised his hand and burned Dao Xian with a fireball before driving back. Yumiaodon had become used to the plain and calm life at Emo's place. Despite Emo telling her that Metal River was no more in Luotsong, she didn't want to leave and instead focused on learning medicine with Lu Xiaojun and Yu Eru. Of course, Emo wouldn't tell her to leave if she didn't want to leave. Plus, one extra person was one extra help. Outside Emo's mansion, there was 4 acres of barren land. Emo wanted to buy that so he could plant some herbs and make his mansion's area larger. Although the place Emo was living at was close to the rural area, it wasn't cheap. Emo didn't have that much money now. He only had 200k in his hand, and the remaining 200k from Lu Xiaojun. There was not even 400k altogether. The price of that land might cost a few million, so perhaps he would even need connections to be able to buy it. The main source of Emo's income now was the online clinic. Although it had started, but there was not a single registered user. The reason was simple. Too few people knew of this clinic, and the registration price was too expensive. Emo gave the money to Yu Eru and told him to buy large amounts of precious medical herbs. Although he couldn't concoct pills now, he could still make some soup and medical pills. A week later, Luotsong was quiet, and Metal River seemed to have disappeared. No one cared about it either. Emo also made a number of different types of medical pills and soup. Because there was no news from the online clinic, Emo prepared to go to Hong Kong first. He didn't feel secure leaving his silver heartgrass there. It would be better in his own mansion. And, when he came back from Hong Kong, he would need to go to Flowing Snake. After all, he promised Fong Nan. It wouldn't be good if he kept delaying it. Plus, it was due to him that Fong Nan was at that state. Just when he made arrangements and was prepared to leave Luotsong, Lu Xiaojun came rushing in. "Master, someone had registered on our website, and there are 2 of them. They applied for the waiting list." Emo also felt joy after hearing that. He was short on money, and he was considering if he should sell a few defense talismans when someone suddenly registered. Each time there was a registration, it would be 10k, and application for waiting list was 100k. It could be said that those who dared to register on his website was definitely someone rich. It was because they could be cheated and was unable to get their money back. What is the described condition? Yimo asked. Lu Xiaojun dejectedly said, one is a vegetable person for 2 years in Hong Kong. And they also said if you went to Hong Kong, they would pay multiple fees. The other one is even further away, in America. They also need you to go over there. The condition is whole body has soft bones. Normally, Yimo would have rejected it straight away. Running to Hong Kong to treat a vegetable. He didn't want to earn that hard money, but now it was convenient. He was going to Hong Kong, so he didn't mind earning this money. Okay, immediately get the Hong Kong patient's address. Allow him to be on the waiting list. As for the America one, reject the waiting list. Do not refund the registration fee, Yimo said. Lu Xiaojun hesitated for a while before saying, Master, this is a vegetable. Yimo smiled. Don't worry, help me do the procedures to get to Hong Kong. The faster the better. Doesn't matter if we pay a little extra. Vegetable people usually weren't serious. He didn't even need to go himself. It would be fine if he just brought a charm. For Yimo, it wasn't hard at all. It would only be troublesome if it wasn't a normal vegetable. Lu Xiaojun admired Yimo so much that she almost worshipped him. Since Yimo said it was fine, then she believed it would be fine. She immediately permitted the Hong Kong patient and rejected the American patient, while telling the American patient if treatment is needed, he needed to get to the appointed place. Lu Xiaojun was very fast and clean in doing these procedures after staying a few years in Luotsang. She only took 3 days to do something that would take 2 weeks. However, Yimo would be going with a tourism company to Hong Kong. Hong Kong, Qingquan Bay. Although the scenery here was good, the region near the mountain was private property. Outsiders could only see the view from afar and was not allowed in. Meanwhile, the most grandiloquent mansion wasn't the mansion on the mountain waste, but instead the temple behind the mansion. This mansion was extremely grandiose whether it was outside or inside. There were 4 big men standing at the door of the temple. At the moment, there were 4 people inside the temple, and one of them was on the bed unconscious. This man looked like he was in his 50s. His face was very skinny, and it had this unhealthy yellow to it. Other than the man laying down, there was 3 other people. One was a middle-aged man and had a very heavy expression on his face. Beside the man was a woman less than 30. If this woman wasn't frowning, she would definitely be beautiful. However, her eye lines seemed oppressive. If her eye lines were a bit more soft, perhaps she would be every man's dream. The last man was obviously a subordinate and stood straight behind the middle-aged man. There was a grandiloquent mansion, but it was unknown why the patient was lying in the temple, and the temple was built even more extravagantly than the mansion. Luochen, what did that website that say they can cure any disease say? At this moment, that man suddenly spoke. Boss, that website agreed to put us on the waiting list, and I have paid the 100K waiting list fee. The man beside him immediately said. Did they ask about anything else? The middle-aged man continued to ask. No, boss, they just made us pay 100K and said they will send people over, and there was no more news, Luo Chen immediately said. Oh. Then man asking the question had extreme disappointment in his eyes. He believed this website was a fraud. They just asked and knew the patient was a vegetable and took the money. They didn't even ask how the patient got the disease and what the symptoms were. Now, they didn't even ask about anything. If this wasn't a fraud website, what was? 100K was nothing, but another hope was lost. However, Luo Chan hesitated before saying, the waiting list we applied for in America was rejected. They told us the doctor wouldn't go America. If we wanted treatment, we would have to go to the appointed place. There's such things. The middle-aged man immediately focused his attention again. Since that website rejected to go to America for treatment, then it meant that they really might not be fraudulent. That woman, however, immediately continued. Did they say when they would come to Hong Kong? They didn't say exact time, but they said within 10 days, they would definitely get to Hong Kong. Luo Chen immediately replied. The middle-aged man nodded and said, Luo Chen, this region has been chaotic recently. Bring some people and make some arrangements. Don't let the doctors from mainland be attacked. Yes, boss, Luo Chen replied and left the temple. Rate translation quality 2 comments join in Google tag. Command push, function, Google tag. Display. Chapter, Ad 166, The tourist group Emo joined was a rather popular one in Luotsang. Perhaps everything was arranged, so the tour leader never asked Emo anything. He probably knew that Emo was just using the tour to get to Hong Kong. The tourist group Emo joined was a rather popular one in Luotsang. Perhaps everything was arranged, so the tour leader never asked Emo anything. He probably knew that Emo was just using the tour to get to Hong Kong. When the tour got to Hong Kong, the first thing they did was shopping, but Emo separated with the tour group. He was planning to do his own thing first and get the silver heart grass before treating the patient. Emo knew that the big boss of Metal River was Metal Mountain, and he knew that the latter was at Hong Kong. However, he didn't know where Metal Mountain lived. Emo was not worried, though. Since Metal Mountain lived in Hong Kong, then he must have his power here. He only needed to go up to them. Before getting on the plane, the tour leader said that Miao Pu was the most chaotic. Although it was very popular, foreign tourists should not go there. Emo wanted to find Metal Mountain, so of course, he needed to go to the most chaotic place. Metal Mountain was the mafia lord. The darker and the more chaotic a place was, the easier it would be for him to get news of Metal Mountain. Miao Pu was indeed filled with people and all sorts of entertainment facilities. Outside, there were all sorts of fast food restaurants and stalls. It was like a big market, and there were all sorts of snacks that made people really want to try. Emo saw one shop's fish balls rice cake, made very exquisitely, and couldn't resist to buy one. The owner was in his 50s, and he heard people call him Uncle Pei. His business wasn't bad. The time Emo came wasn't the traffic peak yet, and there were still a few empty spots. This uncle's skills were indeed very good, and his movements were clean. Just a few minutes after sitting down, this uncle brought him a hot bowl of rice cakes decorated with a golden fishball on top. You must be from mainland. After giving Emo the bowl of rice noodles, the uncle didn't have anything to do, so he casually started a conversation. Emo ate a mouth of rice noodles, and indeed it tasted well. It was a bit spicy, but the taste was authentic. He didn't feel strange hearing the owner's question. His accent was different to the one at Hong Kong after all. The two spoke for a while before a ruckus sounded. Emo turned around and looked. Two groups of people had started fighting opposite the vegetable market. Two people even ran over here. The people chasing behind pulled out a hack knife from somewhere and chased. Emo looked at the two groups fighting. This place was indeed chaotic. The rice noodle shop owner immediately said, "Young man, you must not look. These sort of things happen every few days. Don't bother them, and they won't come to you." At this moment, the police cars finally came. After leaving the shop, Emo prepared to find a hotel to live first. He wasn't afraid of the mafia's revenge. He just didn't want to be wasting time with the police. Emo was disappointed on not being able to hear about Metal River. However, his main purpose coming to Hong Kong was to get his silver heart grass back. The second purpose was to cure disease, so he needed to find a place to stay first and go to a nightclub at night to search for more information. After finding a place to live, Emo took a shower, and when it was night time, Emo was prepared to go to that Uncle Pei's place to have another bowl of rice noodles before searching for news of Metal River. But when Emo came to this place, he found that the shop was closed and a lot of people surrounded the door. There were blood stains on the ground. Emo immediately had a bad feeling. Then, he heard someone say, Uncle Pei was a good man for his entire life, but was hacked just because he reminded that mainland kid. What happened to that Uncle Pei you were talking about? Emo immediately came and asked. The crowd all turned to leave as soon as they saw Emo. No one wanted to talk to Emo. Emo grabbed the nearest old man and asked, "Tell me, what happened to Uncle Pei?" The elder had a face of fear when he saw Emo grab him, so he quickly said, "I don't know, let me go." "Oh, you don't know? Then I'll immediately go around saying you are advertising the bad things Detang has done," Emo cruelly said. The old man was so scared by Emo words that he immediately said, "Please don't say that. Lao Pei was killed just because he told someone who got into conflict with the Detang to leave quickly. This mainland youth got away, but Lao Pei lost his life." Obviously, this old man didn't know Emo was the mainland youth Lao Pei told to leave. Emo's face immediately grew bleak. He was extremely furious. Lao Pei was killed by these people just for warning him. It seemed that before he found Metal River, he needed to go visit Detang. Where are the fugitives? Yimo asked. In the Hong Kong now, the fugitives shouldn't be able to get away with murder, especially in broad daylight. Already ran, the police are chasing after him. I don't know the specifics, the old man replied quickly, but seeing from his expression, it was certain that this would end with no result. Where do the Detang people usually gather at? Yimo asked again. The old man looked around and saw no one come to help him. He was more and more worried and quickly said, normally, at Stanley Feng's Earth Heart Entertainment. That's Detang's land. I beg you, let me go. Yimo let go of his hand and the old man ran away quickly. He didn't even dare to turn around to look at Yimo Earth Heart Entertainment. Yimo never thought he would come to Hong Kong to fight with the mafia as soon as he destroyed Metal River in Luotsang. To be honest, he didn't want to do it at all. It wasn't that he was scared, just that it was troublesome. Plus, what the mafia did had nothing to do with him, but he always happened to meet these people. Normally, people who encounter these things would try to get away as far as possible with guilt. But Yimo wouldn't. He couldn't let Lao Pei die for no reason due to him. In addition, perhaps he could hear about Metal River and Detang. Yimo called a taxi and headed straight for Earth Heart Entertainment. If possible, he didn't mind eradicating Detang too. He casually spread chi around his face to avoid being captured by cameras. Yimo didn't want to be on the wanted list in Hong Kong, since he came to kill today. Detang's gangsters could be fine after killing or judged as accident, but he couldn't. He casually spread chi around his face to avoid being captured by cameras. Yimo didn't want to be on the wanted list in Hong Kong, since he came to kill today. Detang's gangsters could be fine after killing or judged as accident, but he couldn't. It was very boisterous inside Earth Heart Entertainment. Yimo scanned, and it was messy. Everything was done there. As soon as Yimo came to the door, someone stopped him. Brother, I have never seen you before. First time here? At this moment, a youth with curly hair walked out, and as soon as he saw Yimo, he pointed at Yimo and called out, "It's him." He broke two of Brother Fei's teeth in South Street. This curly-haired youth immediately recognized Yimo Go. As this curly-haired youth called, 7 or 8 people charged out. Yimo sneered and didn't hold back. How could these normal gangsters endure his attacks? Soon, all of them were on the ground. Yimo hadn't started killing yet because he needed to confirm things before he would start the slaughter. Friend, you came to our place. Did you want to break our place? I'm the manager here, Chui Hong. At this moment, a manager-looking man walked out. He looked at the 7 or 8 hoodlums on the ground, frowned and said, Yimo kicked again. He kicked down a guy who struggled to get up. Then, he looked coldly at the manager and said, I have 2 things here today. First, did you kill the Uncle Pei from the noodle shop? Humph, do you think you're good just because you can fight? So what if we killed him? The manager saw Yimo casually beat down 7 or 8 gangsters and wanted to ask where Yimo came from. But now, Yimo's arrogance immediately triggered him. No one dared to be so cocky on Detang's place. Yimo was the first. If he didn't beat down Yimo's flames of arrogance, then there was no need for Detang to remain here. Then, Chui Hung waved his hand at the back. Friend, you won't live long if you act cocky just because you can fight a little. From the start till now, our Detang never had someone act so cocky in our territory. Even people from Metal River didn't dare to, much less you. Since you are so cocky, then I will show you the price for your cockiness. Yimo sneered and also felt happy. These people indeed knew about Metal River. It seemed he came to the right place. He casually pulled out the whip Daoist Xian used. He was scared of wasting time if he fought these weaklings fist by fist. At this moment, he actually missed his metal nails. He could pretty much solve these gangsters with 1 nail each. Seeing Yimo take out a whip, Chui Heng's mouth showed even more contempt and called out once again, Go on him together, beat him to death, don't need to hold back. With Chui Heng's order, those 11 gangsters charged, with some of them have hack swords in their hands. Yimo gathered spirit chi in the whip and swung out. With this swing, he gathered 70% of his cultivation chi, The long whip howled and hit the first few who came up. In terms of whip technique, Emo wasn't as good as Daoist Xian, but he didn't even need technique for these little hoodlums. He only needed to infuse the whip with his chi. If Daoist Xian swung it, it wouldn't have such howling sounds. But in Emo's hands, the whip shattered the air. Push. The whip sliced like a long sickle. There were only 11 who attacked Emo, and this whip hit the first 6 people. Not one of those who were hit lived. In the most serious case, the person was almost cut in 2 from the waist. Before the remaining 5 could react, Emo's whip turned and swung again. Another whip. After 2 whips, Emo took back the whip. At this moment, there were some people who hadn't fell. After a few breaths later, they finally fell and died. 11 people only took 2 whips. The only one standing was Cui Hong. He had his jaws wide open while looking at the bloodbath. Was this even human? Killing 11 people with 2 whips. Some people even had their chest torn open. Was he using a whip or a long sword? Does your detang still have more people? Call them up together. Save me the time of looking for them one by one. Emo looked at Cui Hong, who was dumbfounded and sneered. Cui Hong phased for a while before saying with a pale face, None. But what made his soul shatter with fear happened next. The youth in front of him casually threw out a few fireballs. The floor that was previously bloodied with bodies was now covered in ashes. Even those few hack swords were burnt crisp. God? Cui Hong wanted to control his thought and not think in such a way, but he couldn't. Emo scanned with his spirit sense and found that other than some customers, there were indeed no more detang people here. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions. If you don't answer them properly, you will turn into dust very quickly. Emo stared at Cui Hong, who was still dazed, and said. Cui Hong shook and finally recovered. He wiped his still sweating forehead and shakily said, Sir, please ask. Please ask. The scene just then was still shocking his sense. He couldn't control the shaking in his legs. If it wasn't for the disappearance of the bodies, burnt smell in the air, and the melted swords, he really would have thought he was dreaming. Have I killed the person who killed Uncle Pei? Emo scanned Cui Hong and coldly asked. Yes. It's... Cui Hong spoke to this point and was interrupted by Emo. Where is the HQ of Detang? Take me there immediately, or you won't need to be talking anymore. Emo's voice grew cold. He knew that a mercenary like Cui Hong would require more means once he recovers. As expected, Cui Hong said without any hesitation, Metal River's big boss, Metal Mountain, is having negotiations with our leader tonight, saying that some regions will be given to us Detang. After talking for a while, Cui Hong's tone became more consistent. Metal River had usually been very adamant. I don't know why they would bring this up themselves. Brother Yu is afraid Metal Mountain is using tricks, so he brought all of the elites of Detang to the negotiation. Then, Cui Hong stopped shaking. He seemed to have recovered from the shock, but he still looked at Emo with fear. I'm going to find them now. Lead the way, quick, Emo yelled. Yes. Cui Hong didn't dare to disagree at all. It was too late to not say anything, thus, he might as well do more. Emo had some idea why Metal Mountain was having discussions with Detang. It was because he killed Daoist Xian, and Metal Mountain probably knew it. A Metal River without Daoist Xian was like a tiger without its claws. Metal Mountain was acting early. Once Detang knew that Metal River no longer had Daoist Xian, and then they fought, Metal River would lose more things. Detang and Metal River set the discussion place at West Sand's region. West Sand was the largest gang in Hong Kong other than Detang and Metal River. Both parties would agree to having the discussion here. After nearly 40 minutes, Cui Hong drove a Mercedes to West Sand's land. Both parties chose a large private manor. When Cui Hong drove the car in, there were already tens of luxurious limousines parked outside. Cui Hong was stopped at the door. Emo only needed to scan with his spirit sense to know that there were around 200 people in the light and dark. It seemed they would fight with the slightest disagreement. I'm Cui Hong from Detang. I need to see my leader, Cui Hong quickly said to the guard. The guard's face didn't change at all and said, There's an important meeting going on inside. No one is allowed in and out. Please immediately drive away, otherwise, we won't. The guard stopped talking there because Emo had already killed him with a wind blade. You. Cui Hong was so scared that he only said one word, and then didn't even dare to look at Yemo while driving the car in. He had understood just how fierce and cruel Yemo was. The few men who were preparing to stop Cui Hung saw that Cui Hung spoke with the guard and still came in, so they didn't stop them. They didn't see the guard fall and thought the car was let in by the guard. So after Cui Hung stopped the car, no one came to say anything. Cui Hung parked the car and took Yemo to the door of the mansion shakily. At this moment, another two people came to stop Yemo and Cui Hung. Yemo didn't hesitate to knock them out. This time, he didn't kill. At the same time, he turned around and knocked Cui Hung out. Now wasn't the time to kill him. He needed to at least be sure if Metal River was here before killing Cui Hung. And now, he no longer needed Cui Hung to lead the way. He headed straight to the meeting room. Stop! The two black-clothed bulky men at the door raised their gun and said, if these two people didn't point guns, perhaps Yemo would just knock them out. But Yemo hated people pointing guns at him. He didn't hesitate to throw two fireballs before kicking towards the door of the meeting room. Rate translation quality 2 comments join in Google Tag. Command push, function, Google Tag. Display, chapter, add 168, E. Chapter 169. What? You have a problem? Chapter 169. What? You have a problem? Who is it? The first to react was actually an old man in his 60s. As soon as he spoke, two men in their 30s came charging to Yemo from left and right. The left man was slightly skinnier, and before he even reached Yemo, his fists scooped up a fierce killing intent, making the few men sitting near the door feel a frigidness that pierced their bones. Yemo looked at the man with his spirit sense. His fist was indeed fast and deadly, and it had this relentless temperament. This man's fist technique must have been practiced through countless fighting. He wasn't as good as Lang Ji and was even a little worse than Hu Qiu, but his killing intent and temperament in his fists were better than both of them. This was because his fist had put aside his own life and death. In fact, it was usually those who put aside their life and death that could control the lives of other people. This was someone who didn't fear death. Yemo didn't care what he did, but just from his fist, he could tell it couldn't be used by someone who wasn't filled with this temperament. The one who plotted behind the shadows all day wouldn't be able to strike out this fist. Although this fist was sharp and full of temperament, it was too low-grade compared to Yemo. In Yemo's eyes, this man was at most the elementary stage of yellow level. Such difference in level couldn't be made up with a fearless temperament. When the fist reached near his body, Yemo suddenly reached out his hand and attacked first. He accurately grabbed the man's wrist and dispelled the force and temperament of this fist. Then, Yemo's hand used a little force and the man's wrist was easily cracked. Then, Yemo brought his hands up a little, and this skinny man was thrown out many meters away, landing at the corner of the wall. At this moment, the other bald-headed man finally reached in front of Yemo. He wasn't empty-handed, though. He held a trident. In the battle between masters, there was little people who used tridents. But this man not only used a trident, it was even a specially made trident. The tips were very small, while the remaining part half was very broad. This could not only be used as a prick, but also a dagger. Now, the man charged at Yemo using the trident as a dagger. He aimed one prick at Yemo's waist instead of using the entire trident. Although this man was very fast, he was nowhere to hide under Yemo's spirit sense. This man was much more bleak than the other man. He thought that once Yemo blocked, he would change the slice into a stab, making the defender unable to block it. No one could survive after getting stabbed like that. Yemo sneered as he immediately raised his leg and spun it in midair. Anyone who had a little experience in martial arts would know it was very hard to kick out a leg spin in such a short time. The man holding the trident was a little weaker than the man using the fist, but he was much bulkier than that man. When his trident neared Yemo's waist, and he saw that Yemo still didn't react, he immediately felt surprised and happy. He thought that if Yemo were to block, he would turn this slice into a stab and kill Yemo. But his smile soon froze. Yemo had raised his leg and, using a speed that he couldn't even see, spun his leg in air and kicked his wrist. He didn't even have the chance to dodge as that kick was too fast. So fast that he only realized he was kicked after the kick connected. Just like the skinnier man, Emo broke the man's wrist and the trident fell out of the man's hands. At this moment, Emo didn't wait for the trident to fall to the ground. His heels turned kicking accurately on the hilt of the trident. The trident seemed to have grown eyes and flew right back, piercing into the bald man's throat until the handle submerged. The bald man held to the handle with terror. He suddenly understood that when the difference in power was too high, no tricks would be effective. He made gurgling sounds before dying. No one was able to see this extremely fast combat clearly except for the black-clothed woman sitting on the very inside. Emo also knew that woman was the strongest here, but she was strong to a limit. At most, she was the same as Lang Ji or perhaps even a little worse. This woman looked at Emo's actions in surprise. She knew that it would be very easy for Emo to kill the first man, but he let him go. She wondered if it was due to their different motives. One wanted to force Emo out of the room and got his wrists broken, while the one who wanted to kill Emo lost his life. The man who was at the corner also stood up. He looked at Emo in shock. Ever since he graduated, he had never seen a master like Emo. He only heard that Metal River had a Daoissian that was strong, but he never fought with Daoissian, so he didn't know how strong that person was. At this moment, everyone in the room reacted, and all stood up while looking at Emo in shock. Everyone knew about each other. Out of the tens of people in the room, Pongyang and Yufu were the strongest other than Black Widow. Plus, it was unknown if Black Widow were stronger than these two. But the youth who broke open the door defeated Pongyang and Yufu in 2 moves. One injured, one dead. Emo scanned the room and saw that other than these 3 slightly strong ones, the other people were not bad but worthless to him. What made him surprised was that in the people sitting in the room, other than 5 or 6 middle-aged men, 2 youths in their 20s and that woman, the rest were old men in their 50s and above. Friend, I'm Tion Shou. Friends in the society call me Teacher Tion. This is an important meeting between our Hong Kong gangs, and I'm here as a witness. Why have you come, friend? You don't look like you're from here. Did one of our people mess with you? The old man talked very politely, but his long years of authority and utilization of his elder status immediately showed. Emo scanned this old man. He was the first to react and ask who he was. However, this old man thought too highly of himself, calling himself Teacher Tion. Emo didn't want to waste his time with him. He turned and looked at the other people in the room and said, I just eradicated Earth Heart Entertainment and killed some people. I'm here to completely solve the problem. I heard that entertainment place belongs to Detang, who is the big boss of Detang. Stand up. Emo, ignoring Tion Shou, made the old man quite annoyed, but he didn't dare to say anything. Regardless of whether he really did kill those people, his fierce killing meant he was not someone to be easily messed with. A man in his 40s suddenly stood up and said in a low voice, I'm Zui Yu of Detang. Do I have conflict with you? Why are you killing all of us, Detang? It's all the elites of Hong Kong here. No matter how strong you are, do you think you can kill all of the friends in the business? Zui Yu's words were rather skillful. He put himself at a weak position before pulling all of the friends in the Hong Kong underground world to his side. Emo scanned the big bosses of the underground world. He didn't think that Chui Heng's info wasn't accurate. Chui Heng just said it was Metal River and Detang having a meeting. Seeing Emo scan them, a few big bosses kept their glaring eyes on Emo. That expression seemed to say if someone took a lead, they would all come on him. Emo slowly said, because your Detang people killed a friend of mine, so I will annihilate your Detang. What? Just because we killed a person, you're going to kill all of us? Zui Yu looked at Emo in disbelief. This person was too unreasonable. Indeed, today at the small restaurant at South Street, I met a store owner that I got along with, but I didn't think your people would kill him just because of me. You tell me if I should kill you all, Emo coldly said. The big bosses who were guessing which important person was killed by Detang all froze. He was destroying an entire mafia because of a street restaurant owner he met today. This was way too arrogant. Even the most arrogant mafia didn't dare to talk like this. Zui Yu laughed. Okay, I've seen cocky ones, but I haven't seen anyone cockier than you. If the big boss of Nanqing accidentally swore at you, are you going to annihilate Nanqing? If you really have that much balls, then I'll surrender. Emo plainly said, You're right. that Qianlongtu has a useless son and was killed by me. But then, Qianlongtu actually thought he could do something and sent people to hunt me down. So then, not long ago, I went to Sinai Peninsula and killed that old guy. What, do you have a problem? What? You killed Qianlongtu? Not. Zhuiyu's face finally changed. He finally understood who the person in front of him was. Not only Zhuiyu, but all the big bosses at the scene all changed their faces. Those few arrogant ones didn't even hesitate to keep their heads low, not daring to look at Yimo. Yimo could fight his way into the Sinai Peninsula. That meant that these people here wasn't enough for him to kill. Just how strong was he? Chapter 170, Predecessor. Chapter 170. Predecessor. The two men standing behind Zhuiyu suddenly pulled out their guns and rapidly shot at Yimo. Yimo's side. It seemed that he really needed to prepare some normal nails on him. Otherwise, he was sure he could kill these two before they fired. Meanwhile, the shooting speed of Wind Blade couldn't keep up with Bullet, much less a fireball. After the gun fired, everyone was happy. They didn't expect to have the chance to fire in front of Yimo suddenly. Yimo waved his hand and a chi wall immediately surrounded him. When the two bullets reached near the wall, it slowed down. But this was only seen under Yimo's spirit sense. Before other people saw what happened, Yimo had already grabbed the two bullets and threw it back. There was another two gunshots. When the two opened fire for the second time, Yimo's bullets had already pierced their forehead. Two blood dots appeared on their heads, and Yimo just managed to catch the two bullets they shot out again. At this moment, the two men finally fell to the ground. There was not a single person in the room that wasn't experienced in fighting and death. What else have they not seen? Although they have heard that some people could catch bullets, but it was the first time they saw it with their own eyes. They couldn't even believe their own eyes. This wasn't all. The person who caught the bullet could use the bullet to kill the shooter. Some knowledgeable people have already guessed that Yimo came from the hidden sections. No matter how strong the people in Mafia was, nor how many people they had, they wouldn't be able to compare with the hidden sections. If it wasn't for that the people in the hidden sects had a different pursuit, they would not be able to sit here and have meetings. Although Zhuiyu was fierce, but faced with someone who could kill him at any time, his back had already begun sweating. He warned himself that he was the big boss of Detang, but he couldn't suppress the fear of death inside of him. Other people who said they would kill him were just threatening him and needed to worry about revenge. But this person dared to even kill Qianlongtu, so it was all too easy to kill him. Zhuiyu looked around hopefully. Those big bosses who were just talking about unity all lowered their heads. Not one person dared to come out and speak for him. He scanned already and took back his disappointed gaze. It seemed it would be impracticable to find help here. Plus, he understood, so what if someone came to help him? Was he stronger than Qianlongtu? With the temperament and posture Yimo came in, Zhuiyu didn't doubt at all that he killed Qianlongtu. Friend, predecessor. Zhuiyu saluted with his fists. He hesitated before abandoning his pride and saying, predecessor, although I'm the big boss of Detang, but there are good and bad people in my men. If they annoyed you, I'm here to apologize. He then looked at Yimo's agreeing face, Zhuiyu didn't dare to breathe loud and continued. I know I angered predecessor. If there's anything you want me to do, please tell me. If you need my life, do as you wish. Yimo sneered after listening to Zhuiyu's words. He knew that Zhuiyu couldn't have such no fear of death temperament. Yimo suddenly threw out the bullet in his hand. Before Zhuiyu could react, it had pierced Zhuiyu's shoulder. Zhuiyu's face turned pale, but he didn't dare to move. He knew that if Yimo wanted to kill him, he would have died there. Go back and kill the person responsible and immediately disband your Detang. Also, go pay tributes to Uncle Pei's grave. After you have done this, come look for me, Yimo coldly said. He didn't say that the bullet had sealed Zhuiyu's heart meridian. If Zhuiyu dared to not look for him in 3 days, he would die. And Yimo knew that Zhuiyu didn't dare to come back for him. At most, he would disband Detang and run. So Yimo wouldn't chase him. Since he dared to run, then death would await him. If he guessed wrong and that's Zhuiyu really dared to come look for him, he wouldn't mind letting him live. Zhuiyu's heart raced with joy. Of course, he wouldn't be so dumb to come find Yimo. He just wanted to leave Emo as far as possible. Emo looked at him coldly as Wayu held his arm and left desperately. He didn't even ask how he could find him. Emo knew he was right. This guy wanted to run indeed. Seeing Zwayu leave so desperately, everyone felt something was wrong, but Zwayu was dumbed by the thought of escape. Plus, even those who noticed something was wrong couldn't tell what was wrong. The black-dressed girl looked at Emo in surprise. Of course, she saw Emo's actions and knew Emo must have left something of Zwayu. If Zwayu didn't come, he would surely die, but she couldn't tell exactly what Emo did. None of the big bosses here felt that it was funny Zwayu calling Emo predecessor. If someone like Emo wasn't predecessor, then who was? Tiansho's face was pale, but he eventually didn't say anything and sat down. Predecessor, I am Jobieni, now the leader of Western Sands. I didn't know predecessor has arrived. Apologies for our negligence. Pengyang is my good brother, he annoyed predecessor. Could predecessor please have mercy? Then, Zhao Bieni looked at the skinny man who was tossed to the corner by Emo. Emo nodded. He never intended to kill Pengyang, and now that Zhao Bieni asked for mercy, Emo casually said, "You have no business here, go to the side."
Yes.
Zhao Bieni was happy. This meant that Emo let him go. He wouldn't be dumb enough to go argue with Emo. That was suicide. Then, the black-clothed woman suddenly stood up and copied Zhao Bieni's tone. I'm Suyuehua, people call me Black Widow. Greetings, predecessor. Seeing that Zhao Bieni and the Black Widow spoke like that, all the big bosses stood up while reporting their name and gang. Everything seemed so orderly all of a sudden. Afterwards, Emo found Metal Mountain. He seemed to be in his 50s, however. His eyes seemed sunken, not allowing people to see what he's thinking about. I'm Emo. My principle is I don't mess with those who don't mess with me. Since you mess with me, then don't blame me. Metal Mountain, stand up. The first part of Emo's words made everyone gasp a sigh of relief. They thought everything had ended, but then his latter part hung up everyone's hearts. They were scared that Emo was looking for more trouble. Predecessor, I'm Metal Mountain. What business does predecessor have with me? Of course Metal Mountain didn't know Emo's name. Not even Daoixian knew him. Although Metal Mountain was the famous head of a gang in Hong Kong, his facial expression was very polite. The difference with him and Zwayu was that he was calm although remaining polite. Everyone knew that the reason Metal Mountain was so calm was because he had a very strong assistant called Daoixian. This was the reason he could be the leading power in the Hong Kong underworld. Because your men have messed with me, I came here today just for you. Emo could tell that Metal Mountain wasn't simple. His title was Metal Chains Crossing the River, and he did seem like a troublesome person. No wonder Wu Shuiming was no match for him. This is the first time I saw you, predecessor. Who messed with you, predecessor? Metal Mountain wasn't afraid as Zhao Bieni because he wasn't sure if Daoixian was killed. If Daoixian was here, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone. Even if Emo was very strong. He believed that Emo was no match for Daoixian. Emo could tell by Metal Mountain's expression that he had his hopes on Daoixian. He sneered before saying, that Daoist is your man, right? His disciple stole a type of grass I planted, so he pissed me off. Oh, by the way, I've slaughtered both him and his 2 disciples. I've annihilated your Metal River in Luotsong. Emo's words was like a huge hammer smashing into Metal Mountain's chest. Daoixian was killed, and this meant that his leading position would come to an end. Metal Mountain subconsciously looked at the big bosses around him and found that a few of them had a glaring beam in their eyes. His heart sunk. He now hated Daoixian's disciples to the bones. Why did they have to mess with this Emo? He didn't expect Emo was so strong that he could even kill Daoixian. Daoixian was a master who was 1 step away from Earth level. Seeing the sneer at the corner of Emo's mouth, Metal Mountain shivered. He finally felt Zwayu's mood and no longer had his previous composure. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and immediately said, predecessor, I'll take you to Daoixian's place immediately. If the things are still untouched, it should be there. He knew that Daoixian's disciples brought some grass from the mainland, but he wouldn't even ask about these stuff at all. Now that Emo asked, of course, he remembered. Lead the way. Emo's main purpose here was to get the silver heart grass. From Metal Mountain's tone, he seemed to know where it was. He was glad and didn't want to waste time here. Seeing Yemo and Metal Mountain walk out, the people in the room finally felt relieved. Yemo was too horrific for them. He could no longer be threatened by any gang. What made him surprised was that this woman was also a master. Although she was a little worse than Daoist Xian, but she was definitely better than Wuchang. "Who are you?" Chang Wei subconsciously asked. "Doctor," Yemo answered. Chang Wei frowned before saying again, "I'm saying who are you? How did you come in without me noticing at all?" Yemo scanned Chang Wei once. "Do you guys still want me to look at the patient? Otherwise, I'm leaving." He didn't answer Chang Wei's question. This woman was weird. It was none of her business who he was. At this moment, Mo Ping had reacted and quickly said, Yes, doctor, please, this way. I'm Mo Ping. I'm the person who requested you online." Then, he quickly took Yemo into a temple behind the mansion. Chang Wei heard Yemo's tone and was about to throw a tantrum, but she thought twice about it and didn't say anything. She would look for his trouble after Yemo treated the patient. Yemo had seen the man lying on the bed. His face was scrawny and emaciated. He was in his 50s and unconscious. There were also 2 nurses looking after him. Mo Ping told the 2 nurses to leave before respectfully saying to Yemo, "Doctor, this is my uncle Mo Kong. He had been unconscious for 2 years. He was—" Yemo stopped Mo Ping. "You don't need to say anything else. Go out now. I'm going to treat him." "Doctor, I also need to leave," Mo Ping asked in surprise. Of course, Yemo wouldn't let them know he was using cultivation means, so he wouldn't let Mo Ping stay inside. Seeing that Yemo didn't talk, Mo Ping sighed and said, "Okay, I'll go out. May I ask how long you will need and what things do I need to prepare?" Yemo shook his head and said, "Nothing, just go out. I will come out after I'm done. I'm uncertain about the time, but if someone interrupts me during my treatment, they will pay for the consequences." Chang Wei, who wanted to see how Yemo was going to treat the patient, was now kicked out by Yemo for no reason, felt more uncomfortable. She felt this doctor was too unreasonable. After the 2 had left, Yemo closed the door and checked out this temple. He felt strange. There was a good mansion, so why did he have to live in the temple? But this wasn't something he should be concerned with. After making sure there was no surveillance, he then looked at the man on the bed. Yemo felt this person's pulse. It was very slow, but it didn't stop. He ran his qi through the patient's body and checked. Yemo immediately knew this wasn't a vegetable. He was attacked by insidious means like Zhua Igwa's son. The only thing was that the attacker was very careful to make the man a vegetable, but not take his life. Yemo checked the means done to the man. Somebody had forcefully prevented him from awaking, so he could only stay in an unconscious state. The perpetrator not only had great inner qi mastery, but also medical mastery. The difference was that Zhua Huatang only had a sliver of inner qi left in his head by someone casually. The attacker didn't care if Zhua Huatang died or not. Meanwhile, for this patient, the inner qi was used intentionally to make the patient a vegetable. The technique was much more complex. Yemo was sure that even the attacker wasn't sure if he could make the patient recover. If he wasn't a cultivator who had spirit sense and could use cultivation qi however he liked, then he also wouldn't be able to cure this person. Yemo took out a set of needles and immediately pierced into the patient's chest and head. With the use of qi, the few nerves that were blocked by medicine and inner qi were recovered by his qi. Half an hour later, Yemo took out the silver needles and sighed. He knew this person was fine. Although he was fine, Yemo still had a few questions to ask these people. He knew that this person would wake up at most 10 minutes later. As expected, in less than 10 minutes, the man opened his eyes. When he saw Yemo, he was confused and desperate and wanted to sit up immediately. However, he sat on the bed for too long. Even after Yemo treated him, he couldn't get up immediately. "Who are you?" the man asked on the bed. Yemo said, "You have been unconscious for 2 years. I just woke you up." The man frowned as though thinking something, but soon, his face changed immediately and said, "Where am I? How can you save me?" Seeing his face, Yemo knew he must have remembered something. So he could only say, "This is Qing Quan in a private property in Hong Kong. I'm a doctor requested by your nephew Mo Ping to treat you. He said you have been unconscious for more than 2 years." Hong Kong? Mo Ping? So I'm out. Who sent me out? Suddenly, the man looked at Emo with uncertainty and said, "No way. You definitely won't be able to treat my disease." "I know my disease, I know." The man's voice got lower and lower, at least revealing his melancholy and loss of hope. Emo frowned and said once again, "I'm a doctor. I treat people and get paid. I don't need you to admit I treated you. Someone will pay me later. I will just ask you one thing. Who could use inner chi and medicine so perfectly to turn you into a vegetable? Of course, if you don't want to say, then never mind. And you're right, other than me, no one else can cure your disease." The man heard Yemo's words and looked at Yemo once again with uncertainty. "You know my condition is artificial? You really saved me?" "Isn't," the man said, and seemed to have thought of something. Yemo got up and was prepared to leave. Since the man didn't want to talk, he didn't want to talk too. He would get his money and leave. "Wait, I'll tell you." The man suddenly stopped Yemo. Seeing Yemo stop, he continued, "I was indeed harmed. Since this is Hong Kong Qing Quan, then it should be fine. Is there anyone else other than Mo Ping?" Yemo replied, "Another woman called Chang Wei and someone else called Luo Chun." "What? She's also here?" the patient exclaimed. "Although she betrayed me, I still don't want to break my oath." Yemo couldn't do anything, so he asked, "Then do you know the 3-year tournament? I heard there's one this year. Is it at Wuliang Mountain?" Mo Kong looked at Yemo strangely and said, "You actually know Wuliang Mountain?" However, he shook his head and said, "The tournament before was at Wuliang Mountain, but the year I got to the Xia family, I heard that the tournament was no longer at Wuliang Mountain. I heard the next tournament was 5 years later, which should be next year. The tournament is said to be held at a city in the normal world. As for where, I don't know." Yemo frowned and thought that Dao Xian told him it was at Wuliang Mountain. Why would he trick him? He didn't need to. Seeing Yemo frown, Mo Kong said, "It is said that Wuliang Mountain is place hidden sects are gathered the most, and there are many powerful hidden sects there. Normal people can't get in at all. Even if they do, it would be very hard for them to come out again." Yemo stood up. Although he didn't get much useful news, he still got some. Seeing that Yemo was preparing to leave, Mo Kong quickly said, "I know you're someone powerful, and since you want to know about the hidden sects, it means you really want to go in. Do you know about the spirit-sensing rock?" Yemo was dazed. Of course, he knew it. It was the space abyssal rock. It was because he got it that he could make a storage ring. However, also because his power was limited, and there wasn't much space abyssal rock, that his ring only could store 3 cubic meters. But if he had enough space abyssal rock and his power improved, he could refine it more and make a larger storage ring. Hearing Mo Kong talk about space abyssal rock, he was immediately interested. Seeing that Yemo was interested in space abyssal rock, Mo Kong revealed a smile of relief. "You treated my condition, so I don't feel it's enough no matter how much money I give you. You know this stone is the best, and I know where it can be found." Yemo nodded and said, "Indeed, this stone is very useful to me. Please tell me." Mo Kong, however, shook his head and said, "I don't know the exact location, but I know a map of where these things are, and I heard it's in the Wuliang Mountain. That year when I was at the Xia family, I often secretly learned some techniques to defend myself since I was living at the bottom. Once, in a spacious training ground, I saw 2 young people. I still remember their conversation. That younger one told the older one that he found a place with lots of spirit-sensing stones, and said that there were a lot of precious herbs. However, he said that he couldn't go in alone and needed to cooperate with him. He even took out a map. That older one immediately showed a joyful expression and agreed to the younger youth's proposition. Hearing Yemo's words, Mo Ping's eyes were full of extreme disappointment. He immediately walked into the temple and didn't even mention about payment. That woman also had a contemptuous look while sneering. "I thought you were very capable, It seems you are just garbage. Yemo couldn't be bothered with her and turned to leave. If what Emokong said was true, then it meant that he had received more than enough payment. Stop! The woman suddenly called out to Yemo. What else do you want? Yemo turned around and looked at Chong Wei. His spirit sense noticed that there was something different about Chong Wei's face, but he couldn't tell what exactly it was. What else do you want? Yemo turned around and looked at Chong Wei. His spirit sense noticed that there was something different about Chong Wei's face, but he couldn't tell what exactly it was. Chong Wei saw Yemo's plain face and was immediately angered. Her left leg suddenly kicked towards Yemo with lightning-fast speed. It was obvious that she wanted to kick over Yemo and teach him a lesson. Seeing that her leg was about to reach and Yemo didn't do anything, Chong Wei felt relieved. It seemed that she overestimated this doctor. He didn't even time to react, much less counterattack. She didn't know how Emo Ping's people were so useless. Someone like this walked in, and they didn't even know. But the next moment, her face froze. She felt a sudden excruciating pain. Her leg bone made cracking sounds. Not only did Yemo counterattack, but without holding back. If Chong Wei wasn't so careless, she wouldn't have her leg broken by Yemo in one move. But now, she could only hatefully sit on the ground and watch Yemo leave. Yemo was scared that his silver heartgrass would wither if he left it in his storage ring too long. So he wanted to rush back to Luotsong and plant it. After leaving Qing Shui Wan, Yemo thought about whether he should buy a ticket and go invisible and ride the plane. Then, a woman in her 40s carried a little girl that was about 5 or 6 and rushed over. There was also a 10-year-old boy behind her. The woman seemed very distraught, as if running away from something. When she saw Yemo, she quickly avoided him. She was probably being chased. These things happened too much every day, and Yemo didn't take note of it. But soon, Yemo knew why, because a few men stopped in front of the woman. One of them, Yemo had seen before at the meeting last night. He was a bodyguard standing behind Zhao Biani. These people stopped the woman and reached out to grab the little girl in her hands. Yemo smiled and thought of how he should buy a plane ticket. He waved to that bodyguard and said, "Hey you, the one wearing the gray shirt, come here." Only that bodyguard wearing the gray shirt was called. As for the surrounding people, they all shook their heads. This young man didn't want to live. That was a person from Western Sands. He dared to wave at them to come over. As expected, the gray shirt turned around fiercely and looked. His lackeys had surrounded Yemo. "It's you." The gray shirt just said 2 words and his face immediately changed. He quickly ran to Yemo and bowed. "Predecessor Yemo, I didn't know it was you." Yemo knew he would know him, so he coldly said, "Help me buy a ticket to Beijing." He could only go to Beijing first before changing to Luotsong. Then, Yemo took out his identity and some money. The gray shirt respectfully took the identity but rejected Yemo's money. "I'll do it right away. I have a lot of money here. No need for yours, predecessor. I'm Lin Long, a subordinate of Western Sand, Master Jiao." Yemo nodded and casually said, "I know you're Zhao Biani's bodyguard and you don't need to call me predecessor. I'll be waiting for you at that Western restaurant there. Make it quick." The gray shirt respectfully said, "Yes, brother Yemo. I'll be leaving first." Then, Lin Long quickly took his men and left, and didn't even dare to capture that middle-aged woman. Not only was Lin Long's lackeys shocked, but even the way in which people looked at Yemo also changed. They thought that someone who could make people from Western Sand so scared must be worse. Soon, no one dared to look at Yemo, and all left. That woman saw the hoodlums had left her and didn't dare to stay here. She didn't even dare to thank Yemo and took the little girl and boy and ran. Yemo scanned the woman. He made Lin Long buy a ticket for him since he didn't have a passport to buy a plane ticket, but at the same time, he also had the intention of helping the woman. He didn't know who was right and wrong. He didn't want to know anything, but he thought, what good thing could Western Sand do? Yemo walked into the Western restaurant and sat down at a place next to the window. He ordered something and ate. Yemo believed that it was all too easy for these people to buy a plane ticket in Hong Kong. They should be very quick. There wasn't much people at the restaurant now, but when he ordered, more and more people came. Soon, this restaurant was filled. Yimo ate as he thought about how long Lin Long would take to get his thing done. Then, he thought about that woman and the little girl. Yimo suddenly felt that little girl was familiar, and he seemed to have seen them somewhere before. But then he shook his head. He pretty much would never forget someone he saw. Friend, sorry, I've asked my girlfriend to eat here later. I want this position because it was the position I met her last time. Could you please make things convenient for me? Thank you very much. This is a check to express my gratitude. A temperamental youth walked in front of Youth and spoke with a very polite tone. Yimo scanned the restaurant and frowned. This restaurant was full. If he gave this spot to this person, then he would have nowhere to sit. That wasn't the main thing. The main thing was he hasn't finished eating yet. Although this youth was polite, but Yimo didn't like it. Your girlfriend is important, but so is my food and waiting for ticket. Since you want to invite your girlfriend, then you should have ordered a seat earlier. Can't you see I'm eating here? Yimo unhappily said. This youth's tone grew more polite. Sorry, I didn't know I could invite her today. How about I'll give you some more? This meal is on me. It's no big deal giving it to you, but you need to wait after I finish. I should be done in about an hour. Yimo estimated that to be the time for Lin Long to buy him the ticket. Hearing Yimo's words, the youth's face grew bitter. Normally, most people would give over the seat after he said that. Some polite people would even wish him good luck, but the person in front of him was too obstinate. Seeing the youth's desperate face, Yimo sighed and prepared to stand up and give him the seat. He was almost done anyways. It didn't matter if he stood outside waiting for Lin Long. At this moment, the youth's phone rang. He quickly picked up and said, "Quick, bring Ms. Bing here. At that Poland Street's Western cuisine." Yes, yes. Yimo dazed. He finally remembered who that little girl was. He saw that girl in a picture at Yun Bing's house. Was she Yun Bing's child? But why was she at Hong Kong? He had never heard about Yun Bing talk about her past and never asked her about it. He didn't expect to see her daughter in Hong Kong. Now that he thought about it, she did seem quite similar to Yun Bing. Friend, move over please. My friend is almost here. How much money do you want? Name your price. This youth finally lost his patience. Yimo's thought was interrupted once again and was very annoyed. He was prepared to give the seat over, but he was interrupted twice, so he told the waiter, "Give me another steak." You. The youth was finally triggered. He was being polite, but didn't expect Yimo to be so rude. I'll say it once again, it's not too late if you move aside now. I don't want to make things ugly. This youth no longer had that polite tone and threatened him. Yimo was scared of threats the least. The Song family threatened him, and he killed 3 of their direct lineage. Nan Qing threatened him, and Qian Longto's body is now cold. Now, he met another person who threatened him. Piss off. Yimo was finally angry. This guy meant that it would be wrong of him if he didn't give over the seat. You. Great, you have balls. I want to see how long that can last. The youth picked up the phone. It seemed he was going to call people over. Gu-e, where do I sit? Before Yimo spoke, a swan-like voice sounded. The girl who came was in her 20s, and her brows were lightly adorned. Her long lashes were like 2 small brushes, and her skin was very white. However, what caught Yimo's attention the most was her voice. It was a bit like Tan Fei's, crisp and very pleasant. Miss Bing, you're here. We'll sit here. I'll make this person give over the seat for us. This is the place we met for the first time. The youth who was just about to rage at Yimo immediately smiled. Seeing that the seat wasn't ready, Ms. Bing girl casually said, "Then we'll find another seat. I still have things later." Hearing this, the youth was worried and walked in front of Yimo and was about to warn him once again. He didn't want to show his ugly side in front of Ms. Bing. But before this youth spoke, a middle-aged man rushed in the door followed by 2 people. The man rushed in front of Yimo and quickly took out a plane ticket and said, "Predecessor Yimo, I've brought the plane ticket here. Do you have any other requests?" But before this youth spoke, a middle-aged man rushed in the door followed by 2 people. The man rushed in front of Yimo and quickly took out a plane ticket and said, "Predecessor Yimo, I've brought the plane ticket here. Do you have any other requests?" Yimo raised his head. He didn't expect the person to be Jiao Biani. This Western Sand big boss came personally just to give him a plane ticket. Yemo took the plane ticket and his document before saying, "Thank you, Mr. Jia. Just don't call me predecessor from now on." Yes, Brother Emo, of course. Zhao Biani knew how strong Yemo was and didn't dare to say no to him. It was a heavenly fortune to be able to help Yemo. Gui already felt that Zhao Biani seemed like the big boss of Western Sand. Now that he heard Mr. Jiao and looked at the two people behind him, one of which was Lin Long, he immediately knew that the person who came was really the big boss of Western Sand, Zhao Biani. Gui was immediately scared pale. Although he had some power, but it was nothing compared to Zhao Biani. He didn't think the big boss of Western Sand would be so respectful to Yemo and call him brother. Who was this young man sitting here and eating? Thinking about how he was threatening him before, no wonder he told him to piss off. Gui's back was already sweating. Gui quickly bowed in apology and stepped back. Although Yemo had detested Gui a lot, he didn't want to be bothered with him. Although Zhao Biani noticed something, but since Yemo didn't say anything, he couldn't really do much. "Sit. I have things to ask you," Yemo said to Zhao Biani. "Yes, Brother Emo." Zhao Biani was happy. It seemed Yemo had some good impression of him. That girl didn't know who Zhao Biani was. She saw a middle-aged man call Yemo brother and couldn't help to laugh. This scared Gui that he immediately pulled her, trying to get her away. However, this girl suddenly yelled at Gui, "Gui, keep your hands off. Don't pull me." Hearing the girl's reproach, he carefully looked at Yemo and didn't even dare to breathe loud. Then, he actually turned and ran away. No matter how dumb the girl was, she knew that Yemo was no ordinary person. She saw that even a young master like Gui was so scared of Yemo. He was prepared to tell Yemo to move before, but now, he didn't even care about her and just left. If it wasn't for the power of Gui's family and his decent character, the girl wouldn't come to the date. However, she didn't expect that the person who invited her would ran away before they even ate. Funny how she was still thinking of an excuse to leave later. Are you called Serene?" The girl didn't leave and studied Yemo before asking in surprise. Zhao Biani cursed, hoping this garrulous girl would go away. He finally got close to Yemo a little, and this retarded girl was talking nonsense. If it wasn't for Yemo, he would have gotten people to throw her out. Yemo looked at this girl in surprise. He thought that when he used the name Shering, he already used Qi to obfuscate the camera. How did this person know him? Only Yunbing knew he was Shering. Was this girl really related to Yunbing? Seeing Yemo was shocked, this girl just sat straight down. She knew she had guessed right and said in a satisfied manner, "Because I'm the person who admires Shering the most. I've watched his fighting recording countless times. Your body shape looks like him. This isn't the main thing. It's primarily because I'm really good at dealing with tapes. As long as I have an approximate face, I can refine it out. Although you have more defined features than the image I refined, but you still look quite similar." Yemo helplessly said, "Yes, I am Shering. That isn't my real name. My real name is Yemo." "Ah, it really is you. I'm so lucky. You don't know how many people in my school admires you. I didn't think I would meet you today. I'm Wu Bing. Let's shake hands." Then, Wu Bing already extended her hand. She seemed to act as though she was close with him. Yemo could only shake hands with her. Zhao Biani almost looked at Wu Bing in jealousy. It was good being a girl, so easy to shake hands. He couldn't do the same as she did. Thinking about this, he felt depressed. He came specially just for Yemo, but was interrupted by this girl who still hasn't stopped. Wu Bing's hand felt boneless. Yemo thought of Luo Susu. When he hugged her before, he didn't notice it at the time due to the danger, but now, he remembered that Luo Susu's waist also felt boneless and was very comfortable. Seeing that Yemo not letting her hands go, Wu Bing blushed and quickly pulled out her hands. Yemo also noticed his impoliteness and awkwardly smiled. However, Zhao Biani understood it as Yemo having a liking into younger girls. Since he now knew Yemo had this fetish, he would make sure Yemo was happy next time. Of course, Yemo didn't know what the two were thinking. His face recovered and turned to Wu Bing and said, "Wu Bing, I have some things to discuss with Mr. Jiao. You may do as you wish." Seeing that Yemo implied she should leave, although she still wanted to talk with Yemo for a while, but she looked at Peng Yang and Lin Long behind her and seemed to realize she shouldn't stay here. She immediately stood up and said, "Brother Yi, you are my idol. Can you leave me your number?" After saying this, she saw Emo didn't reply, so she awkwardly said, "Brother Yi, don't worry. I won't call you on a whim. I just want to keep a number to fulfill my idol dream." Seeing Wu Bing act so awkward, Emo thought that even if she called him, she wouldn't reach him. Chapter 175. Meeting Yunbing again? Chapter 175. Meeting Yunbing again. He must say that Lin Long did things fast and found that girl again in less than an hour. Yemo took a good look at the girl and was sure it was the girl he saw last time at Yunbing's house. She did look very cute. The girl seemed to know she was in a bad situation and was scared. She wouldn't talk no matter what. Yemo sighed. Such a smart girl. She actually knew she was at a disadvantage. "What's your name?" Yemo asked. The girl bit her lips and didn't talk. Yemo could only say, "I know your mom. Do you want me to take you to your mom?" "You're lying." This time, the girl's reply was quick and crisp. Yemo smiled and said, "I didn't lie to you. Your mother is called Yunbing. She saved me once and is my teacher. If you trust me, I can take you to your mother." "You really know my mother?" "I'm Ting. If you can really take me to my mother, I will go with you." Obviously, the girl was believing what Yemo was saying. This also meant that she knew about her mom's situation. Before Yemo replied, the phone on the table suddenly rung. Ever since he got the phone from Han Zixin, he had never picked up a call and always kept it in his storage ring. Even if someone called, it wouldn't reach. He didn't expect that as soon as he took it out, someone would call him. Yemo picked up the call and soon, there was a joyful voice. "Leader, I have reached him." Han Zixin's voice immediately sounded, "Brother Yi, your phone is really hard to reach. Finally, I reached you today." Yemo frowned. He was scared of Han Zixin looking for business with him, but now it came. "Sorry, Brother Yi. I really need your help this time. If you are free, come to Beijing, we'll talk in person." It's hard to explain on the phone. Although Han Zixin said sorry, his tone didn't sound like he was sorry at all. Yemo helplessly hung up. He was going by Beijing anyways to see Yiling and Zifeng, so he might as well go and see Han Zixin. Yemo stood up and said to Zhao Biani, "You found Ting. I owe you one. I'm going to leave with Ting now." Hearing Yemo's words, Zhao Biani's face erupted with joy. Although Yemo didn't leave any contact methods, but he promised he owed him one. This couldn't be bought with money. He knew how strong Yemo was, so how powerful was his promise? What couldn't he do? He didn't leave a contact method, meaning that if it wasn't something big, then don't bother him. If he really couldn't deal with the situation, then try and find him. Moreover, it could also mean that if it was mafia wars, then don't ask him for help. Regardless of what it meant, since Yemo said that, it meant a lot to Zhao Biani. He didn't even need Yemo to do anything. As long as he put the word out, then his Western Sands status would rise straight up. Yemo came back to Beijing and called Yiling only to know that Yi Zifeng went to America with the investigation squad. Yiling also found an excuse to go, but she couldn't reach Yemo before she left. Although Yiling didn't say what sort of investigation squad it was, but Yemo knew something about it. It seemed that Yi Baron wanted to cultivate Yi Zifeng heavily. This investigation squad must be related to government. Perhaps once Yi Zifeng came back, he only needed to write an article and would soon receive a decent position. Yemo wouldn't mind about these things, but since Yi Zifeng liked it, he would let him be. Everyone had their own path. "Brother Emo, my family before was living at Liyang District. Coming to Beijing, Ting was soon excited. After leaving the airport, she could point out to a lot of things. Do you want me to send you back?" Hearing this, Yemo casually asked Ting. Ting raised her lips and said, "I don't want to go back. They don't even let me go out to play. At most, I can go to kindergarten or go on the plane to America. They would never let me see my mom. I hate this place. The friends at kindergarten all have mothers, but I don't. And my stepmom isn't nice to me at all." "Okay, in that case, I'll take you to your mom." Yemo laughed to himself. A little girl 6 years old really knew a lot. "Brother Emo, this district is where I lived before." Ting Ting pointed to a luxurious mansion and said. The driver heard this was where Ting Ting used to live and immediately had a look of admiration and carefulness because he knew that those who lived here weren't simple. Normal people couldn't come in here at all. Yimo subconsciously scanned out his spirit sense inside. His spirit sense had reached 100 meters. Yimo's face immediately changed. He actually saw Yun Bing. She was sitting in one of the mansions. Her face was pale and hair messy. She just kept shaking her head while saying something. Her eyes were red. Driver, stop the car. Yimo immediately felt something happen to Yun Bing. Brother Imo, are you going to take me to where I lived before? Ting Ting saw that Yimo took her and flipped over the wall to get in. She felt this was fun but still asked worriedly. I'll take you to see your mother. Yimo walked faster and quickly entered this mansion. Yun Bing's voice also sounded. I didn't take Ting Ting away. Give me back Ting Ting. Give her back to me. Her tone was screeching. Give her to you. Who knows where you got Ting Ting to? A young woman came up to Yun Bing and slapped her in the face. Yun Bing seemed to be dumbed. Seeing this palm come, she didn't even react. Yimo suddenly appeared before Yun Bing and grabbed this hand. He twisted the hand and this woman was flung out away onto a distant corner. Yimo didn't use much force and just threw the woman away. Yimo, is that you? Yun Bing hadn't seen Ting Ting, who was let go by Yimo. She just saw Yimo and couldn't control her emotions. She fell into Yimo's arms and started crying. Yimo looked awkwardly at Yun Bing in his arms. Yun Bing's soft body and mature smell reached into his arms. Okay, you slut, keeping other men? No wonder Ting Ting. The woman had woken up and saw Yun Bing in Yimo's arms and immediately screamed. But she just said half and saw Ting Ting standing at the side. She immediately stopped. Yun Bing also reacted. She remembered where this place was. This was the place she feared the most. She actually did that to Yimo. If she wasn't terrified to a certain degree, she really wouldn't do that. Plus, she had been thinking about Yimo a lot, and Yimo suddenly appeared in front of her. That's why she did that. The O family only needed a word, and she was moved from Ninghai to Beijing by her own family. When her family brought her here, they left immediately, not caring about her life or death. Seeing Yun Bing get up, Yimo finally felt relieved and said to Yun Bing, Ms. Yun, this is your daughter Ting Ting. After I found her, I was prepared to take her back to Ninghai, but I saw you here, so I came. Yun Bing had forgotten to ask how Yimo saw she was here, and just stared straight at Ting Ting. After a while, tears started to cover her face. Ting Ting, is that you? Mummy really miss you. Mummy. Ting Ting also recognized that this messy-haired person was her mom and rushed into her arms. The two hugged and cried. Ever since Ting Ting was born, she barely spent time with Ting Ting, but the connected spirit between the mother and daughter couldn't be separated. Who are you? How dare you come into our O family? At this moment, a middle-aged man walked out. Yimo sneered but didn't talk. He turned to Yun Bing and said, Mrs. Yun, since Ting Ting is fine, we'll take her and leave. After crying for a while, Yun Bing had came to her sense. She just realized what her situation was and terror showed in her eyes once again. Leave? Do you think you can come and leave our O family? This middle-aged man sneered again. As soon as he spoke, another youth with swollen eyes and an old man in his 50s came. The old man had a man in his 30s behind him. Yimo could tell that that man was not bad. The swollen eyes youth looked at Yimo before saying, Yun Bing, since my brother doesn't want you, marry me. As long as you marry me, I will help you with everything. Bastard, that old man swore. The youth didn't care and said, didn't Big Brother already go to America? And I really like Yun Bing. The old man ignored the youth and looked at Yun Bing and Ting Ting before saying, Ting Ting, tell me, did this bad woman trick you away? You are the bad person. She's my mummy. Ting Ting immediately grabbed Yun Bing's hand. The old man ignored Ting Ting and turned to look at Yimo. Although our O family isn't a big family in Beijing, but it isn't a place where someone can come and go as they please. Feng'an, call Tanyi and see if we should send him straight to police or teach him a lesson first.
Yes.
The man behind the old man immediately took out a phone. Yimo sneered. I, Yimo, can go wherever I want. There's no one who can stop me. Even if your O family is one of the 5 big families, I, Yemo, can come and go as I please, much less when you're not. What can you do? Chapter 176. The Nightmare in Yun Bing's Eyes. Chapter 176. The Nightmare in Yun Bing's Eyes. You're saying you are Yemo? The Yemo of Beijing Yi family? That Yemo who made Yi Barong send away his 2 sons? The old man didn't continue, but he was already sure that this Yemo was indeed the Yemo. If he really was that abandoned son of the Yi family, then that meant he was the person even the Song family didn't dare to mess with him, much less his O family that was lesser than the Song family. This Yemo had killed more than a few of the Song family's people. Last week, the moment before Song Xiaoqian died, he said he understood. No one knew what he understood, but everyone speculated that it should be related to Yemo. Even though everyone in the Song family knew that Song Xiaoqian was killed by Yemo, still no one dared to find Yemo. The Song family didn't even dare to touch Yemo, so Yemo wasn't bluffing at all when he said he wasn't afraid of the O family. Although this old man didn't know why the Song family was so scared of Yemo, but he knew that although the leader of the Song family, Song Qiming, was careful, there was no way that he would give up revenge on the person who killed his son. So, there must be scarier things about Yemo that he, O Jinlong, didn't know. O Jinlong's face looked bad. It wasn't that he didn't want Yemo to leave, but that he regretted what he said just then. Why didn't he investigate Yemo and at least know what he looked like? Although he was sure that the O family wouldn't be afraid of Yemo, he didn't want to have to fight Yemo first and let other people get the advantage. If O Jinling could realize this problem, so could that middle-aged man. A slightly famous family in Beijing would have heard of Yemo's name. Before Yemo appeared in Beijing, there were the 6 most cocky young masters. They were very cocky, but since Yemo appeared in Beijing, one of them has been sent away, and one was killed. The remaining 4 were all sent away by their family for fear of meeting Yemo. But now, the O family sent their young master to America, but Yemo found them. Very cocky are you. I'll kick you to death. That bulging-eyed youth saw Yun Bing hide fearfully behind Yemo and was very angry. Why didn't she hide behind him? He finally couldn't resist it after hearing Yemo's words and kicked to Yemo. It was too late now for O Jinlong to stop him out. Yemo looked at this youth coldly and also kicked back. Yemo's leg landed on the youth's knee. There was a teeth-rubbing sound, and Yemo's feet continued as it landed on the youth's chest. The youth was kicked out many meters away until he crashed on the wall and fell down. Blood spewed out of his mouth, and one leg was obviously broken by Yemo Yu. O Jinling had an anticipation of Yemo's cockiness, but didn't expect it to be of this degree, kicking his grandson like that in front of him. If Yemo used a little more force, someone would have died. Yun Bing was scared witless. Yemo actually kicked the direct grandson of O Jinling half dead and even broke his kneecaps. How could she not be scared? She just thought about what should we do now. Yemo got into a feud with the O family because of her. She could only try to think of ways for Yemo to get away as far as possible. However, what made Yun Bing more confused was that O Jinlong actually didn't go on a tantrum. He just said "you" in extreme fury and stopped. Yemo sneered. What about me? Very cocky? You're right. I'm cocky to you. I'm going now. Is there someone going to stop me? O Jinlong's face was green with anger. Although his O family wasn't one of the 5 big families of Beijing, but their power was no less than that of the 5 great families. Normally, even the 5 great families tried to avoid conflict with the O family. Thus, there was 6 young masters of Beijing, not 5. How could O Jinling do nothing when a young man smashed into his door and acted so cocky in front of him? Even when he's retired, he still couldn't let it go. Okay. O Jinlong was so angry he was stuttering. He couldn't understand why the Song family people could endure after Yemo killed their people. Yemo didn't kill his people, but he could no longer endure it. If the Song family could even endure that, it seemed that they were really on the downfall. Yemo sneered and looked at O Jinlong. You're welcome to find your revenge, but don't blame me if you don't return. I hate people who threaten me. I'll give you a chance to exact revenge now. And old thing, I'm warning you. If you dare to touch one of Yun Bing's hair next time, I will annihilate the O family. I'm going. I'll be waiting for you to come for me. Then, Yimo took Yun Bing and Ting Ting and just left. He couldn't even be bothered to look at O Jinlong, who was shaking with fury. O Jinling breathed heavily and almost fainted. After a while, he finally recovered with people patting his back. The first thing he said when he woke up was, "No matter the cost, we will send this punk to hell. If he thinks we're like the 5 great families, then he's blind." After the 3 had left that little district very far, Yun Bing finally woke up to reality and said, "Yimo, hurry up and run as far as possible. Quick, when the O family is ready, you won't be able to leave." Yimo smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Mrs. Yun, I'm fine. I have feud with even the Song family, but I'm still walking fine on the streets, much less the O family." At this moment, Yimo had greater realization of the importance of strength. If he hadn't reached stage 3 Qi gathering, then perhaps his bones would have been chewed away by the Song family. Even if the Song family didn't, Nanxing would have devoured him. "You don't know how fierce the O family is. I beg you, please go." Yun Bing saw Yimo was untouched and immediately began to worry. "Mummy, why do you want Big Brother Imo to leave? Isn't it good for him to stay with us?" Ting Ting saw that her mom wanted Yimo to leave and couldn't help but to ask. Yun Bing carried up Ting Ting and said, "Ting Ting, why are you calling him Big Brother? You need to call him Uncle, okay?" Ting Ting raised her lips and said, "At Hong Kong, I saw many older people call him Brother Imo, so of course I will call him Imo Big Brother." "What? Ting Ting, you went to Hong Kong? How did you go there?" Yun Bing finally thought of asking how Ting Ting went to Hong Kong and forgot about Yimo's situation. Yimo recounted what happened in Hong Kong. "You know Ting Ting?" Yun Bing asked Yimo with curiosity. Yimo said, "I saw her that day in your room." Yun Bing immediately remembered that Yimo stayed in her house for a few days. She seemed to have thought of something and blushed. Yun Bing's face was pale due to what happened before, and now, it was very obvious when it suddenly changed red. "Mom, why is your face red?" Ting Ting immediately noticed and asked. Yun Bing awkwardly said, "Ting Ting, let's go. Mummy will buy you some snacks." Yun Bing moved Ting Ting's attention to snacks in one sentence, and she unexpectedly didn't request Yimo to leave. Ting Ting wanted to go eat KFC, so the 3 could only go eat some junk food, but Ting Ting was very happy. "Are you going back to Ninghai today?" Yun Bing suddenly asked Yimo. Although she wanted to be with Yimo, she didn't have any reason. Now that Ting Ting was by her side, she felt very happy. Even if she was killed due to the O family's revenge, she didn't feel it was that bad. Of course, Yimo didn't know what Yun Bing was thinking, but it was nighttime, and he didn't know how long it would take to get back to Ninghai, so he said, "Not going back? Then we'll go live at a hotel?" Yun Bing immediately asked and felt anticipation. Yimo shook his head. "I have a place to live in Beijing. It's where my sister Yiling and brother Yi Zifeng live at. But they never go there, so we'll go there today. What do you think, Mrs. Yun?" Hearing Yimo's words, Yun Bing actually felt better and immediately said, "Okay, it would be best not going to hotel. I didn't expect you to have somewhere to live in Beijing, but can you stop calling me Mrs. Yun from now on? Just call me Yun Bing or Sister Bing." "No problem, Sister Bing." Yimo was very grateful to Yun Bing risking her life to save him, and he never had the chance to repay her. Now that he could help her, he was very happy. Suddenly, Yun Bing seemed to have thought of something and looked at Yimo and said, "Your sister and brother? Are you the Yi families?" "Oh, sorry, I only heard about this from other people." Yimo smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's the truth, but my sister Yiling is very nice to me. So although I'm not of the Yi family in Beijing, Yiling is still my sister, and Yi Zifeng is still my brother." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.